welcome to the Game Informer Show. I am your host, Andy McNamara. I am joined today by an all-star cast. But first, before we introduce them, I'd like to point out I missed last week. And then Alex, who I'm going to introduce first, said, oh, it's because we're recording it late and Andy is old and he might not be able to stay up this late. Don't think because I wasn't around, I wasn't going to listen to the show. I just want to let you know that.
I think Ryder made that joke first, so you direct that fury where it needs to be. And then then I emphasized it in the post. But whatever, whatever. It wasn't my joke.
Sure, it wasn't your joke. Sure, whatever. You're innocent.
Well, I don't know about that.
Dinner at 4 p.m., right, Andy?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Right into bed by 6.
Did you get the proper sleep you needed? Just out of curiosity.
Tell you what, how did the show go? How did the show go without me, huh? How was hosting? Did you enjoy that? Yeah, it's a different game, isn't it?
I did have fun. I was pooping.
Did you have fun?
I did. I was pooping my pants during the community section, but I think I pulled it together okay during the main section. But so
during the community section.
Yeah. You were missed. You were missed.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you. I just wanted to make sure I got you a little grief here to start it off. But we're also joined this week, who did not mock me last week, by Matt Miller. How are you doing, Matt?
I'm doing well.
Excellent. And we're also joined by Kim Wallace. Kimberly, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Andy?
It is amazing to hear your voice. Let me say.
I love
it's been a while, right?
Yeah.
It's been a while.
Oh, I love it.
So for this week's show, we are going to talk some Cyberpunk. There was an event earlier today. Myself, Kim, and Miller were able to play the game recently, and we've got a lot to talk about and a lot of things to say that I think you're going to find exciting. So please hang in with us there. Later in the show, we're going to talk a little bit about the Avengers event that happened on Wednesday. We're going to talk a little bit about Pokemon, just because why not? It's Pokemon. We should just talk about it. And then we'll do some community emails. Not too many games this week, but some games. But once again, I'd like to point out, if you have any questions, send them to podcast@gameinformer.com. Please follow us. Use your favorite podcast app to subscribe to the show. We'd really appreciate it. If you're on YouTube, a like would help us a ton. A subscribe even more. So we appreciate all your support. If you hit the bell in the corner, you will get notifications when we make these shows. And I know that's a little troublesome when you get those shows that Alex does, but you don't want to miss the ones that I host.
I promise it's not a recurring thing.
I just like to make Alex's life a little hell. He did a great job. And then one last thing I just wanted to kind of point out. This last week, I'm going to go with this last month. It's been really hard to focus on games. And by the way, I've played a lot of great games. We did The Last of Us, and there's been a lot of controversy around The Last of Us. When we basically had Black Lives Matter surface, and I think that's still important. I want to make sure I bring that up again. That's still important to us. It's still important to us and where we're going. We did a fundraiser on it, but we can still do more. We're not done. I just want everyone to know that. But this week, there has been a lot of trouble about just a lot of instances of abuse throughout games that a lot of people have experienced. And I wanted to make sure I came up and said that I expect better out of gamers and the game industry. We don't need to be preying on people's passions about games, taking advantage of anyone in the workplace. It's really despicable to me. And I think I speak for everyone at Game Informer when I say that. So we really need to be an agent for change. So with all the issues at hand, we take them all very seriously, because I just want to make sure that I get that out of the way, and that we want to do everything we can to support and foster a good, fun environment to enjoy games, and for people that work in the games industry that's safe and responsible for everyone. So I just wanted to make sure I got that out there, that's important. 100%. So like I said, a little bit of a downer there, and a little bit downer the last month, but games are still fun, and we're going to still have a great show, and we're still talking about some really exciting games coming down the pipe. But we got to all do better. We got to all do better, folks. We got to all do better. It's on all of us. So let's remember that.
Yeah. And
all right.
Quick to that point. we have an amazing community on over the Overblood Facebook group. We have an awesome community in general, but like, we're not naive. Like, if this stuff is happening to you in our circles, let the mods know. Let me know. Like, I have no tolerance for this. So like, if it's happening in our community, like, let us know, because it's not going to continue. Period.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Thank you, Alex. That's exactly right. Yeah, it really is. It's important.
Yeah.
We love games and we love gamers.
Yeah.
And that's basically what it comes down to.
Yeah.
So we were very lucky to get to play Cyberpunk. It was an adventure. Ever since I first saw they were doing Cyberpunk, I was like, how are they going to do that? What's going to pull off? And I saw it at the first event at E3, and I was like, well, damn, that's pretty cool. And then, then I get to see a little bit more at every E3, and it's kind of been one of those ones that have been highly anticipated. It does have some news that's hit around it lately. We had a September release, which was like, September's not far away. And then they were like, well, how about November? So it did get moved back. That said, I even through some of my own conversations with the people at CD Projekt Red, I admire those guys and that team over there. They were like, we just want to make the best game we can. I mean, they are so serious about how much they want to make the best games. In particular, when we played the game, they were like, what feedback do you have? What can we do better? I mean, they are interested in making sure their product is as good as can be. So when they come out and say they're delaying it to make it better, I'm like, of course they are. Right. That matters a lot to them personally. And I just wanted to make sure I called them out for that, because I have a lot of respect for that as a player and someone who covers games. I think that's great and really important to try to make the best game you can. Games are hard. There's no game that's ever perfect. By the way, no one is. If you were expected to ship a perfect game at a developer, no game would ever ship.
We would never play games.
We would never play games. There would be no games. So, I mean, every game is going to have issues. But everyone strives for perfection, and I think that's what we have to acknowledge and be, be happy that there's a delay. That means they want to make it better. Like I know some people get mad, and like for years, a long time, it was like a scarlet letter to delay a game, and like it's just silly. Delays are ultimately to make the game better, and we're lucky that they're able to do that. So so now November 19th. Now, that said, with the delay, that could mean that the next generation of platforms is out. Like that we could have PlayStation 5. We could have the Xbox Series X. So, I mean, there's all those things that kind of adds into that. And I think, at least for me, I don't know about you guys, I'm going to ask that question first before we dive into the game. Like, would you wait? Like, let's say it's a week later that the next generation came out. Would you wait, or would you play it on current platforms?
I think I'd wait.
I mean,
you think you could?
I mean, there's some circumstances, just given the nature of our job, that we're not given the chance to wait, because we need to do these sorts of things and talk about games in the timely moment that they happen. But for my own personal engagement with a game I'm as excited about as Cyberpunk, I think I would probably choose to wait if it was that close. I mean, they've basically said that it's November 19th on existing platforms, but because those new platforms don't have release dates, I don't think they can say. So even if they knew, for instance, if Sony was coming out with the PS5 in early November, which, by the way, we don't have any idea if they are.
Yeah.
But if they did, it's not like CD Projekt could say something about that, right?
Oh,
so
yeah,
they still have to just say, it's TBA on release date for next gen platforms. But it sure would be cool for the launch day of that game to just be, hey, get it on PS4 or Xbox One or PS5 or Series X. I mean, play the way that you want, or PC, of course.
Yeah. But I'm going to play it on PC myself, so I don't have to worry about that, I think.
Sure.
Well, they do have it where it automatically upgrades the version you have. So if you buy it on Xbox, One, say you'll be able to play on Series X. So what you could do, and I'm going to be is you could start one life path and start with one play style on the one game, then wait a week and then see how different it would be if you started on. I'm just spitballing here.
Kim is already planning her life around this, just so everyone knows. She's saying it's an option for you, but Kim is just very clearly explaining what she's planning on doing.
Yeah. I already told people I'm probably going to be playing this game year round at this point, by knowing all the content that's in it and everything. So yeah, I am planning very carefully about how I approach this one.
I think having now, three of us in this call have now played what would seem like a significant chunk of it, but really isn't because of how big the game is. And I think once you do play even a little of the game, you realize that it is one of those types of projects that if you're going to get into it, you could really go deep. And this could be a thing that you would just, that's what you engage with for several weeks or months, even depending on your approach to time and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so I need like a 6-month vacation then approved and ready to go.
Paperwork. Submit the paperwork.
If there's a leave of absence, that's why.
Taking a sabbatical to play Cyberpunk.
If anybody understands, it's got to be Game Informer, right?
Right. So that is the thing that I think we'll talk about first. So the game has 3 life paths that when you start the game that you get to choose. Which was we all chose one. So all 3 of us played. We all played kind of at the same time. We weren't. We all had to play from home, obviously remotely, just like everybody else in the world. Mm-hmm. So Kim, what life path did you pick?
I played as a street kid because I love being an underdog, rising from the very bottom all the way to the top. Through the corruption, I'm gonna get in. I deserve it. I've had a hard life. I spent a lot of time at the bar. I've spent a lot of time beating people up to get what I need. But I am a street kid. I am rough and tough, street smarts all over right here. That was my life path.
Kim, I love your enthusiasm. I don't plan so much role play into my game heading into it.
It is all I care
about. That's so great.
Yeah.
And so, Miller, what life path did you head down in Cyberpunk?
I was a nomad. So this is a guy who comes in from outside of the city. So you start your game having lived as a lone wolf kind of guy out in the wastes. Almost kind of has a little bit of a Mad Max vibe to it. But the implication is that you've sort of been a smuggler and you've kind of barely been making ends meet. And you finally make the call to take a job that's going to send you into Night City. And that becomes sort of where that particular version of V is coming from, both for the intro of the game, but then it, for all 3 of us, it then affects subsequent conversation options and how you, the things as you meet new people. The street kid kind of knows something different than the nomad, which is cool.
Yeah, there's definitely that choice you make affects the entire game. They may not be the huge changes that we're aware of yet, but they do introduce options that you get or ways that you can approach things or give you more information so you have more ability to make those choices as to how you will approach a situation. Myself, I was left to the last choice. So they made me a corpo, which is I'm corporate. What's up, everybody? How you doing? So and my particular character, is the classic cyberpunk tale of corporations are dominating, are both an army and a company and a source of power throughout this world as you kind of look to this dystopia and where it's gone. But it's also a place that is dog eat dog at every level, right? There's at a corporation. You want to be careful who you trust, and that it becomes very clear in your corporation corpo play is that you're being. I mean, basically, the moment that you start talking, you're being set up, right? That's just how it starts off, right? And so, but that was a lot of fun. The character creator, which was the next kind of thing, before you even headed down that, there were a lot of options, a lot of things to look at to create your character. I was kind of bummed because we were a little bit on a time thing. So I was like, yeah, cool. All right, look, I could do a lot of stuff. Look, make haircuts. Those are some cool haircuts. And I went because I wanted to play. I don't know if did you guys spend any time in the character creator at all?
It was. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Kim.
No, I I just think it was very hard to tear myself away from it because I could easily have spent hours in there just making the character I wanted. But I did look at, there's a lot, the hair options. I just want everybody to know there's a lot of good hair options, which is very important in character creator. Like, and it feels like they got hair right, which some games have struggled with in the past. But like, you know, anything you want. So like your makeup type, your scars, like there's a random button, which my demoer was talking to me about, is that you could just randomize it and it comes out with all these really weird, like clown face ones or just like funny creations. So I think what I'm going to do is when I get this game is just randomize a bunch and take pictures of the craziest ones that I get. But it's so extensive to like, you know, you really do. Me and Miller were talking about it. It really represents this world we're in and how you can modify every part of your body to be what you want it to be. You are not defined by the body that you are born into. And that character creator, when you step into it, is very much your first kind of taste of that with all the options you have to make your character. But as I said, I had to cut myself off because I needed to play, but I wish I had more time to make really cool character because it's definitely possible.
And it also seems to be the first step, right? There seems to be more mods and everything like that as you go down the path. And something we'll talk about later too, which is important, that you get to pick your stats at that point, which are like int, tech, body, cool, yeah, things of that nature. But they have like a ridiculous set of talent trees behind them that we'll get to in a little bit here. But so there's a lot of modification stuff that you get to further down the road. And Miller, how about you? Did you spend some time with that character creator?
Like you guys, I mean, I think I was eager to get into the game and I didn't spend a lot of time, but I think more than a lot of character creation tool sets, it is tied together with the themes of the game, right? Like to Kim's point, you're creating a character that very well, even by this point in their life, may have like changed a bunch of things about who they are and the way that they present to the world. And so whether that's you know, along lines of gender fluidity. I mean, you can basically apply the male or the female voice, fully voiced as either option. You can apply that no matter what your body looks like. You can just choose which voice it applies to. And it just speaks to, as you get into the game, how much that is true. That there's characters in the story who have effectively totally changed out their bodies, right? Like they've replaced limbs, they've replaced their skin, they've changed all sorts of features about themselves, and that's just the way that world is. And so they sort of get that aspect of things right up front, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, in the early trailers, we all saw things like various like people with like crazy 8 mechanical eyes and things like that. I mean, like it does run a gambit of options there. I loved it too. I just felt like I used the randomizer, and I was like, very quickly I went, "Ooh, I like that one. Oh, 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 she's cool. I'm gonna be." It was pretty easy to really. I felt even in the randomizer, they just felt really into that world, which I think is important to note now. For anyone who doesn't know who CD Projekt Red, they made Witcher, right? That's where they made all their juice, let's say, that they're spending on this.
Their street cred, if you will.
Their street cred. Yeah, there you go.
Cred. Witcher 3, very much so.
And to that point, you know, one of the things that's great about Witcher is that Witcher is an RPG that's deep, has a lot of options, but it's very quick. This game has more options. And so what we really did when we started to play was like, could we look and see how deep the world is? Because that's really where Witcher shines, is the world is so deep. There's so many like quests stacked on top of each other that you can spend time within a world talking to people. And so once you start down that path, to me at least, and I want to hear your stories, it's very apparent that like you could talk to a lot of people, you could look at a lot of objects. You immediately find that like, okay, I need to invest in all these RPG things, and it seems like these RPG choices really, really have a lot of effect on what you're doing and where you're going. So, Kim, why don't you tell me a little bit about your first experience, your first once the controller finally let you move in that world. How did it go? Street Kid, tell us all about it.
Street Kid had sensory overload. It felt like the first time when my first time I went to Japan and everything was just like culture shock around me a little bit. It was like that, but everything is vying for your attention at any given moment. And I found myself caught up, like I would talk to a random street person and get a cool scene where, like, in one of my scenes, there was a guy preaching about the dangers of technology and how we've depended too much on it. And these girls walk past and, like, make a joke to each other, being like, oh, it's one of those, like, crazies. Like, this is so funny. Like, he's like those people on TV. And they go and take a selfie, like, right in front of him as he's preaching and speaking. And it's just like this cool little moment in the world. But then on top of that, you have, like, you can unlock, you know, these side, like, you have the basic main quest, then you have the side quests, which CD Projekt Red is very, very well known for. And they said there's tons there that relate to, like, the main characters, getting more backstories on them, maybe finding out more. This world is inhabited by all these different corporations and gangs, and they all have their own flavors and things that they're after, which you will find out more through the story and through those side quests. But then there's, like, all these extra activities to do in the world. So you have, like, you have fist fights you can go do around the world. You have, like, a shooting range. You have, you know, any corner you turn around, you can have the gang on gang violence, and you can help the police with that stuff. So there's different ways for you to answer those calls. And if you open the map, it's that similar feeling that I got with The Witcher 3, where I was just like, oh my God, there is so much to do, and I want to do it all. I don't know if I can do it all because it'll take me forever, but I just want to do everything. Like, you know, there's little hidden stashes you could find, blueprints to create weapons. Like, I could go on and on and on, but, like, you feel like there's a sense of discovery around every corner. And then on top of that, you're like, I'm never going to run out of things to do in this world. Like, and we were only in the freaking prologue, the first, like, main area of this world. Like, it is that same sense of that first Witcher area where you're like, oh, there's so much to do here, and you complete it all, and then you go into the next area and you're like, oh, like, there's a
that's
lot.
when it opens up.
Yeah, that's when it's really gonna open up. So I want it, like, I know, what did you guys think as you were walking around? Like, I thought it was so interesting to kind of, you're watching this really engrossing world and trying to see, like, a darker side to, like, a potential portal to a darker future that technology could take, right? With people getting crazy, with turning part machine, part human. And then you also have, like I said, all these cool little things around it that kind of support what this world has been. Like, you have ads plastered across, you know, the subways and stuff. And it's really cool.
Yeah, I think my intro was more that, like, it started very sheltered in, like, a, you know, a corporation building, and I was like, it gave me a chance to, like, walk by. And one of the notes that stuck out to me was someone watching. They were like, "I have your report," and I was like, "I don't care," right? You know, but I mean, like, and it gave me the options of, like, yeah, send me an email, you know, let me know later, right? And then, or I could be like, okay, yeah, fill me in, whatever. But I, by the way, I already had things to do. They wanted me to go take somebody out. There was all this corporate intrigue. It was already going down that path. And so I had things to do, right? I had things to do. So I kind of blew this guy off. And then I was like, I went around the corner. I, like, got to my desk, and I was like, oh, I got the email. Let me check the email. You know, I kind of did, like, my kind of normal life kind of stuff. At that time, when the person I was with goes like, yeah, we have a lot of people in there that, like, he's not going to tell you anything important necessarily there, but he's there for role play, for people that want to role play in that world and just feel more in depth. And I was like, I thought it was cool. And then he was like, but the thing is later in the game, those people that seem inconsequential, or, like, that you're passing by, that's going to be a quest. That's going to be something that you fall into Witcher style later, which I was like, okay, that's really cool. But at this point, like, it kind of reminded me a little bit, like, the music was, like, very Mass Effect-y at this point within the kind of corporate world. But it was all very sheltered. And I was like, I want to get out to the world. Can they do the world? You could see the world through the windows. And I was like, I don't know when we're going to get there. All right, I got to take the elevator. I got to go there. And then pretty early on, I met my friend Jackie Wells. I assume everyone kind of, like, crosses paths with him fairly early, which of course leads you down that path as you start to head towards the open world and kind of do that. But it's definitely, you're right. That beginning, Kim, is like, you kind of walk around. It's kind of like a Blade Runner moment where you're kind of walking through the alley and you're like, oh, look at that. Oh, look at that. It gives you that kind of moment to soak it in, kind of really think about what the world is. Because I will say this, almost immediately and throughout my entire demo, there's I mean, this is early game. There's some things that we'll talk about that kind of were maybe a little bit annoying, but the world building is spectacular, top notch. Miller, how about you? How about this Nomad? How did that feel?
It was cool. I mean, just to sort of paint a picture of how this all shakes out, you do the intro and that life path intro, even though it's not just isolated to the intro. It carries forward through the game.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that is totally separate between the 3 playthroughs we had is what would you guys say? Maybe half an hour? About,
give or take, depending on how much time you spent or didn't spend.
Exactly, and then it funnels together into a unified, like there's a time jump, and then you're, no matter how things got introduced or how you met Jackie, you're on a team with Jackie, right? Some time has passed, you're working in the big city, and you're on a job, and from there it kind of takes off. Your background still matters at that point for conversations that you subsequently have. But for me, the sense of breadth and depth really kicked in after some of those early missions. Yeah. And, there's a point. It's interesting to hear you say, Kim, that it reminded you of Japan, because that was exactly the sensation I had. There's a point you go up into your hotel, it's nighttime, you sleep in your bed, and then you go back out in the morning to meet back up with Jackie. And you go down the elevator and you come out, and it was exactly the sensation I remember of having come into Tokyo the first time I went there. It was night when I got there, and the next morning coming back out, and we were staying in the Shibuya district, if anybody knows Tokyo, and it's this really crazy busy shopping youth district, right? And there's oftentimes hundreds of people at this one crossing in Shibuya, and you can see these huge towering neon signs everywhere, and it was that, but times 10, right? Yeah. In Cyberpunk, it's a world that they have crafted. Both CD Projekt Red, and it's worth noting, of course, that this is inspired by a tabletop role-playing game that's been running for decades, and that team has been creating content for decades. And so there's a big history and background that they've been able to leverage to create their world. And you get the sense, for me, it was the things that in another game are based on real things. Like, for instance, when you play Grand Theft Auto, you see the fictional cars, right? But that that's a Lamborghini, right? That's what that is. You play Assassin's Creed, and they're referencing certain historical moments or something like that, and they go into a lot of detail about what this place looked like in that moment. You can imagine that sensation, except applied to an entirely fictional framework, right? They have these, there's all these brands in the world, and by their own admission, CD Projekt Red basically had an entire portion of their team that just did in-game ads, not in-game ads for Coca-Cola. I mean that they made products, and then they made marketing campaigns for those products, and then you see those in the world. And
a lot of neon for those products.
Yes, a lot of neon. But the sensation is one that feeds into the broader themes of what Cyberpunk is about, right? It's commercialism run amok to a point that it's almost completely overwhelming. Where technology has given us all these crazy tools, but people are just overwhelmed by it, right? You get all this cyberware that you install in your body. And in some other games, some futuristic sci-fi games, they play around with themes that are like, oh, well, I don't know if you should change add this tech to your body, because are you still going to be human? That's not what this game's about. You're changing your body. I mean, everybody does.
The question is, are we going to get hacked while I do this? That is 100% their concern. Is who is going to know, and how are we going to avoid them?
Exactly. And it's not, I don't think it's really conceivable to play this game as oh, I'm a pure human and I'm never going to take on any tech. I mean, you start the game with tech installed in your body, and then you almost, by just the nature of needing to survive on these streets, you have to take on more tech. And so there's all these things that are pointing to this sort of bleak understanding of what it might be like to be human in the future. But it also has this quality of being like a car accident that you can't look away from, because it's so fascinating and so deep. All these different elements that you're seeing kind of colliding at once.
100%. So one of the next things that I think is of note is that at this point, and we're trying to we're not trying to spoil it, but a lot of it is things you've seen, as far as some of the demos and things that you've seen a part of, when they go grab the body out of the ice bath and the medical team comes, and those kind of scenes that have already been out there are part of these early things. But I think what's interesting here, and what I want to hear from you guys, is like, okay, this is our first time to really engage the mechanics of the game, right? So stealth, shooting, like one of the big gameplay loops. So Kim, what was your first experience with like using, guns, tech, the healing system, and those kind of experiences, they start to come into play? Because once you get down that path, because it's Cyberpunk, right? Like, it doesn't take long till the shooting starts, or till you need to like sneak up on someone and kill them. It's like I said, it's a tough world out there.
Yeah, for me, I tried to go invest more in hacking because I wanted to hack my way around the world. And what I found interesting with that is just there's even within hacking, there's different ways to approach it. You could be somebody who goes more for like hacking like devices like turrets and, security cameras and all that. Or you could like do target hacking, which is, hacking into enemy cyberware. And so like you could call an enemy, go into a cyberware, call another enemy to him, and then detonate a grenade right in front of them. There's so many like creative little ways to use every aspect of this game that even for me at first, it's overwhelming because you get introduced to like all these mechanics. Even like the melee system, for example, seemed deeper than I expected. Like you can counter parry, you can break things, break strong attacks by,
charging up.
Yeah, sorry, thank you. And I even for me, I was like, I don't know how I want to play this game, but I went through and I tried to hack as much as possible. For me being a hacker, it means everything around you could be a potential object that you could use to help you. So like in some cases, I would hack into a TV to distract a guard. And the one thing that was a little difficult for me was, what you have to realize is this game doesn't let you just like go in, stealth kill someone and walk away and no one's going to find that body. A body's always going to be found and you need to hide it. So you need to freaking find where the trash cans are to dispose of the body. So I actually found in the beginning, until I got more of my skills, hacking was a little more challenging than I expected, because I was like, I'm just going to hack everything and it's going to be fine. But you also, the game has restrictions, so you can't just like hack everything. You have your memory. You have a certain amount of points, and you can only use so much of those to hack into different enemies
and give those commands and things.
Yeah, like and give those commands. So like you can't just spam, I'm going to hack everything possible in this area and be okay. It will regen as it goes on, so it's not like you won't ever get them back, but you do have to plan things out. It was a lot of more careful. And then the verticality of the world kept screwing me up, because I was used to The Witcher, where like everything is flat and like you just know you're going to look left, right, whatever. I kept forgetting that you have to look up, because there are always enemies above you somewhere, and
cover does not work on them.
Right, and there's always something to hack up there. But the verticality is also really cool, because even when you look up, just it really conveys a sense of how huge this world is. Like you feel those buildings weighing down.
It's oppressive.
On you. Yes, very much so. But I didn't realize how much that was going to factor into like how I moved around the world, right? Because there's so many instances where I just felt like I wish I would have thought to look up there or look that way. But it is really about trying to figure out. And sometimes even with the hacking, finding your escape, it's not about hacking every enemy or taking everyone down. Sometimes it really is to just find that optimal path and just go. Don't even worry about getting every single, because there's too many people in these areas to get that down.
I'm sorry, Kim, my OCD does not allow that. I just there's no way around that.
Well,
I have to kill
everyone is dead.
Yeah, there's no way around that.
Here's a funny story with what happened with me. I was hacking the entire time, and then I found a shotgun. And the shotgun changed my life. It was so fun to use. Whenever I would screw up a hack and get detected, I would just whip out that shotgun and just one shot, because you just got to get really up close to enemies and you can annihilate them so fast. And it's just a fun little fast way if you want to kill everything to go through. So it was like my backup. So I played as a hacker who, if I got too frustrated and you pissed me off, you're going to get popped off with my shotgun at any whim or turn. I felt so powerful with it. It was great. But yeah, that's just speaks to like you're not locked into one play style. You can adapt to how you want to play. And so once I really liked that shotgun, I started investing in in the body stat in particular, so I had health to go up really close to those enemies and just like get that one pop shot off and be done with them.
Yeah, the game is definitely a mix, but I think this is about the point we should talk about. I got to tell you, my mind was pretty blown because I was like, I had ability points and I hadn't spent them yet, and I was like, oh, you spend those by clicking on your five stats, right? Which once again we talked about, it was tech, cool, reflexes, body, int. And I was trying to shoot a lot of people, so I'm like, I'm going body, going reflexes, a little bit of tech because I want to use cool stuff in this world. So I'm like clicking on things, and I'm like, oh, I don't know, it's kind of, I don't know that I love this choice of just more health. Okay, yeah, I want some more reflexes. I could use some more things. He goes like, no. Use the shoulder buttons. There's more talent trees. And I'm like, there's more talent trees. And I'm like, no, there's not. And so like under each one of those, so under tech, under cool, under reflexes, under body, under int, you click on that. And then that has a talent tree. And it has like 4 or 5 talent trees. Within, I mean, you were like, wait, what? And then you back out and you click on cool and you go, oh my God, there's like 5 different paths you can pick on here. So where you want to spend your points is all over the place. And each one of those trees is a tree, right? So there's like, you need to invest in early things to get to the later options later. But at this point, once again, we only have about 5 hours to play. And I'm like, I could spend an hour looking through, just reading what all the powers do, what all the talents do, what their end games are, what you're trying to build out of that. So there's a lot. Everything is at your disposal. You have all 3 gun slots that you get right away. So you can have a shotgun, you can have like a rifle, you can have a pistol, and work on those and improve those. They have their own mods and everything like that. But the fact that your character and the amount of things you can put into that, and I don't know, I think I was level 6 or level 7 when this demo was over. It's just comical that you only have like 5 things out of these trees that are ridiculous, right?
It is insane. I remember it feels like a response to people with The Witcher, where there's only the 3 main things, and people are like, "There's not enough here." Like, well, CD Projekt Red obviously took that to heart, and then some, and then some, and then some, and just layered upon layered. For an RPG fan like me, this is delightful. I love being able to touch on those trees and decide, because when I started, I invested heavily in intelligence and cool, because that's what you need to be a good hacker.
A good street kid, right? Yeah,
a good street kid in this game. But then I went, and even with the hacking, like I said, it had device and target, and then also the more you use any of these abilities in the world, they level up. So if you use a specific, like a rifle a lot, your gunslinger ability will level up. And then if, for me, hacking, whenever I hacked a device, because that's what I was using, my device thing would level up, and then that gives you extra bonuses for your stats. And if you like stats, there's just so much to tweak here. We didn't even talk about too the fact that you can mod your body to have all these cool different types of things, like gorilla arms, and so you can just have like super powered strength and like rip off doors and stuff. And on top of that, you also all your armor and weapons can be modded. So like you can put like a silencer on your gun, so your gun doesn't like, that gunshot isn't heard all around. Or you can touch your gear up and be like, you know what? I want to up my critical chance. So everything is about thinking about how you play and putting it all together. But just think of all these options before you. And it's really overwhelming at first. But then as you play, I think for me anyways, it started to tailor to the way I wanted to, because I was investing in the stuff that was, beneficial to me. But think of all the replayability that's here. If you play another playthrough completely, just like, I know Andy just likes to gun everything. Like,
I do.
You could just be that jerk, like, in the middle of a conversation, who always just takes the gun out and is like, you know what, I'm tired of you, get out of here. Where I would have negotiated peacefully and paid extra money to avoid combat. But it's just like these cool things that you can do within the systems and how you play. And I know you did the gun path, Andy, and Miller, you tried to be very stealthy, correct?
Yeah, I did like stealth and melee a little bit, which is cool. I mean, I think it's worth noting that because of the depth of those systems, both in the body modding, the leveling, the perks, the modding of weapons and armor, the crafting of weapons and armor. I mean, there's all these systems, and I mean, I think while we each had different experiences, the the sentiment that emerged by the end was like, do you know what just happened? Like, what did we even just do? I mean, was that even, did we even get through the beginning of the game? I mean, this thing is so big that it's very, very hard. I mean, like, I think one of the challenges that we're wrestling with, even while we talk about this, is like trying to evaluate things like the gunplay, or the melee systems is very challenging to do after, and I know this will sound weird, but after only 4 hours. Because
it's the smallest drop in the
drop in the bucket. It
There's
really
a lot
is.
You can develop on each one of those trees.
And so, for instance, there were things about the gunplay that, and I don't mean this as a dramatic negative, but there were things that maybe felt a little bit stiff to me, right, compared to best in class FPS that I've played, right? Would you say that's fair? I mean, it's not like
it doesn't out of the gate. You're not playing Destiny.
Exactly. But whether that is a function of like the systems at play, or it's simply that this is an RPG and I'm playing with the level 1 rifle, I can't answer that question, right?
I will say, I'd like to add, not to interrupt what you're on here. Like, I did feel that over time, by the time we got to the end, and I invested a lot of time playing. At first, I was like, this is a little jumpy, a little skippy. I don't know how because I'd been lucky and kind of played it once a little bit before, and I think at that time the controls were like really tight.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, I kind of felt like it had digressed some. That said, as I went forward and the numbers went up, it really started to come into its own. Like the shooting started to feel like I could feel the numbers and getting the crits and kind of the way the guns were going to behave. Like that it had that nice mix of like, yes, I was doing action that defined how well I shot, but there was a role going on in the background, right? Like that there was.
It is an RPG at its heart. It is no doubt that it is that.
So that your gunfire felt like it was calibrating as I went forward. As I got a mod that fixed my hand and gave me a better sight, like those kind of things, they immediately made the gun feel better. And all the points I spent on skills were all like, I want to aim better. I want to like have, quicker response. And I could feel those in the play, even in those first 5 hours. So I assume 50 hours in, and this is an assumption to your point, that it'll be even better as I invest more into that later on. Now that, of course, is an unknown, but I'm sorry.
I mean, this is why we don't. This is why we don't review games 5 months before launch, right? I mean, because seriously, like the response, it's a matter of responsibility, right? Like for us, we've all seen games that 2 months before launch, they just haven't all been tightened up yet, and
especially ones with a lot of systems.
Yes, like this.
The last 2 months mean a lot,
and so the fact that they moved this from a September to a November launch, that is going to make a huge difference to things. And exactly what those things that they're working on and what they're going to change, it's hard to know. But I wouldn't dare to pass judgment on how the gunplay is. Or like another thing for me that was like, it's maybe not feeling as great as it could be was the driving. But maybe I had the worst car at the beginning.
Or they gave us too good of a car.
Or too good of a car, and I wasn't good at controlling it yet, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe they're still working on that. And that I really, really shouldn't be taken as an indictment that like those aspects of the game aren't going to be good. They're just where things are at in our own experience. But that said, I mean, I thought the stealth felt good. It's pretty familiar, right? You're in first person all the time, so you're wandering around and trying to get behind dudes, and you can do non-lethal or lethal takedowns. To Kim's point, you stuff people in like containers that you find, which helps you out.
Containers from the future. They're cyber containers.
Cyber containers.
Yeah. Just throw them in the garbage.
Exactly. And you can get through I went through an entire like little side mission area, never alerted anybody, took out everybody in the little gang hideout that I was attacking, and then just had free reign to wander around and look at what was left. I mean, you see in the RPG sphere, once you come into a space and you kill or you knock out a bunch of guys, you get little pop-ups on your mini map that are showing you like color rarity of the drops that they have, so you can
very handy.
It's super handy. You can be like, I'm sure there will get to be a point where you're wandering around being like, I don't need any more greens, right? That's not worth it. But
a loot lover's dream. I will say that for
There's
anybody who like loves that with Borderlands, picking up with the different colors of like, oh, I just found this better, mod or gun or whatever. It is that.
So I had free reign to go and just take my time gathering all that stuff, and then I left the hideout, and they had a van, so I just took their van, and that was like, and so I was feeling really proud of myself because I had nobody detected me, and I got all this loot. I left with their van, and I immediately ran over a civilian outside, and so I got a bounty on my head. Like it totally has like a Grand Theft Auto style like wanted system. Where if you kill you hurt civilians, or if you do something illegal like stealing stuff, then it immediately throws a bounty up, and the Night City PD are going to be looking for you, and so you have to like go lay low for a while. So there are those sorts of emergent moments that you would expect out of a big urban open world game, that are a lot of fun. And likewise, I mean, whether it's fun or not, there's also those emergent moments where you're driving along and there's a gang fight coming out, and you think you're a bad, so you get out and they shoot you and you die immediately because like sometimes you get in over your head.
Yeah, they're hard leveled. Like they're so like you could come around a corner and go like, oh, those guys are a little too high. I don't need to go here. The world is pretty open to you pretty early on, but certainly you will be limited by what you can go and accomplish. That's cool that you finished a stealth mission. I stealthed some, but I was definitely still kind of like, I think just kind of becoming familiar with the world. A lot of times I'd be like, oh, I'll sneak up on that guy again, and then be like, oh, the camera saw me. Of course the camera saw me. I was like, I would just get like, I would just start going and not paying attention. And then of course, then at that point I would just start shooting and be like, well, we're going to shoot. Right. I did find that flanking works really well in this game. You kind of have a pretty powerful slide as well, so you're able to get around pretty well. I had no problems, I think, getting involved. I mean, the covering fire stuff is like, if anyone's above you, they're going to probably hit you. Like cover really falls apart when they get any kind of elevation on you, to Kim's point earlier, that the game has a lot of verticality to it. But it felt solid. Do you know what I mean? Like, especially too, and I mean this, like, Witcher was a solid game. It was a solid action game, but you were never like, the action in Witcher is unbelievable, right? Do you know what I mean? Like, I think, you'd be like, it was good. It was solid. It got me where I wanted to go. It was a good solid part. And I think at this point, I can safely say this is very, very good functional action system at every level that executes well. You know what I mean? Like to Miller's point, is it Destiny do things? No, because Destiny isn't this big giant RPG with 50,000 talent trees and like all these RPG elements. You know what I mean? I think that's one of those things you always have to be careful about what you're trying to compare it to. And obviously, maybe at the end, when, like you said, maybe when it does come out, it will be. But like right now, it feels like it's really built on these systems. It's really built on like understanding and exploiting those systems, that even though stealth, like you said, may be kind of classic, you need to, crouch and sneak up on someone and get rid of the body. It's the integration of how you use combat, how those cameras and hacking can change that world. And like Kim, if you want to run straight to the end and find the best path, which I think is ridiculous, you can do that. But if you want to shoot your way out, I see.
I'm a lover, not a fighter.
Yeah, well, you're better than me. So I do think those are what that's the next big pillar of the game to me, is that kind of like combat interaction moment. And I think you touched on this too, Miller, which was the driving is the next point, and that kind of open world. In our time, we didn't have a lot of time to understand the open world, though. You can open up the map, to Miller's point. They were like, oh, what quest should I do? And they go, you should do this one over here. And I was like, that's a long way away. The city is big, and I was able to drive a good distance to get there. And there were a lot of things that popped up. There is the wanted system that's in play. And also too, there were a number of things like, I was like, what's that? And they're like, oh, that's a turret, that if you really piss people off in this area, there's a turret that's going to pop up and own your face. And I was like, don't want to do that. Let's move on. So there's a lot of things built in that world. And I think there's a lot of things as you build on getting better, that you'll get to do more emergent stuff within that open world. But that was a question mark for me coming out of this thing. How about you guys? Did you have any open world experiences that you could share?
There's lots of things to do. Like there's lots of icons on the map. They generally seem to be going for a kind of contextual approach to that. And what I mean by that is that you'll come into a new space and you'll be contacted sometimes by like the local fixer, like the guy who's like going to get mercs like you a job. and they may touch base with you and give you sort of like a quick rundown. And then if you choose to kind of chase one of those leads, when you get really close to a thing, then that's when you get more info, right? Like, which I thought was kind of a cool approach. And then of course you actually come up on the icon, and then you have to just kind of, you're on your own and you got to figure out what to do. So there's all sorts of weird things like that. There's little shorter events where you'll run into somebody who's just like runs in front of your car, and one of their like one of the ridiculous ones I ran into that was very sort of in tone was like with Grand Theft Auto, was one where I ran into a guy who wanted me to come pick him up because the cyberware in his genitals had gone wrong.
Of course.
And like he literally was like burning him, and so he needed me to take him to a Ripper doc while he screamed the whole way. So it was, I mean, anybody who's played a Grand Theft Auto game, I mean, I think that tone of kind of game content is familiar. It goes for that sort of vibe a lot, I think, in this game. Talking about the lunacy of the things people get themselves into, and the way they, in this case, the way they use technology in ways that are maybe unwise.
Yeah.
But
you know, and you have a phone too. You have a phone too, like you know, where people call and interact, things like that's another Grand Theft Auto kind of like
totally
is there.
But you know, I had a fun time just wandering around in the open world, and the biggest takeaway for me was like how dangerous it was.
Yeah.
I mean, danger and oppression. Like we talked about the oppressive weight of the buildings. I mean, the whole game has that quality. I think there's going to be players of this game who like is like struggle with the sense of like, this is a really bleak, dark place. It's wonderfully crafted, and beautiful in its own right because it is so thoughtfully crafted. But it's also like, man, this is a dark view of the way humanity could be with itself, where, you know, there's not a lot of like nice people, right? These are most people just to survive, either not getting squashed by the corporations or caught in a gunfight between the gangs. Everybody's out for themselves. Everybody's just trying to survive, including you. And you just kind of are doing what you have to do in order to not be dead tomorrow.
Yeah.
And that is the tone of that world. And it, you know, I think the creator of this franchise, Mike Pondsmith, has said a few different times about like, this cyberpunk world is a warning, like it's what it is. And I think that was attractive to CDPR. I mean, one of the things that their experience is that they did this project because there were people on their team who grew up with the cyberpunk tabletop RPG in the final years of Soviet control of Poland. And that's, I mean, it's wild, right? I mean, like, this was their outlet to have a sense of rebellion against authority while they lived under a communist regime. I mean, you could see why, like 20, 30 years later,
they might be attracted to that.
They might be attracted to like coming back to that, and like we run a video game studio now, and we can make a game that talks about that stuff.
That's super interesting.
So
yeah, and I think too that's the to your point, a lot of it does feed into that world. Like the side quest I did, I went and found you know, a monk who was like, oh my gosh, they're going to put technology in my brother and ruin him. You know, people that were trying to fight against technology and where it took them. And it was like, save him, but don't kill anybody. And I was like, yeah, okay. And
good luck with that.
And you know, I went and killed everybody, saved his brother. And then his brother was mad. He was like, my life is not worth it. You can't kill everyone for me. And I was like, can I kill him? You know, but it definitely, you know, they're trying to sell that vibe that's there. So Kim, I wanted to ask your question. So at this point, and I think we still have some more story stuff that we want to get to as well, and some other kind of key points that I think we want to talk about as far as we get into choice and conversations that we'll get to. But I do think that next big point that Miller did talk on was the driving, which I felt like the spaces were a little too tight. Like I wanted a motorcycle rather than a car. And after dealing with like these kind of RPG systems that felt like really calculated, to have this like kind of twitchy car all of a sudden as I moved around the world just felt a little out of place to me. How was your experience with the vehicle? And by the way, it's important. You need a vehicle. Like the world is big, and even though like the first mission you drive like 5 feet. It's kind of hilarious. You're like, why did I drive to this? I could have like walked.
You get
but then you very quickly get very long. You know, the world opens up.
Yeah,
I was actually surprised with how much driving there was. I'm not the biggest fan of driving in games because I ain't great at it. I'll be honest there, but you know, it was more than I expected because nothing is, as you're saying, close together. As Miller was kind of saying, there are fast travel points, but you have to unlock those points before you can, by visiting the area, before you can use them. And then on top of that, they don't always get you right where you need to be by a quest. Because I had times where I used them and still had to like do a lengthy drive down to get to where I needed to go. So I was surprised that there was as much driving as there was. And for me, there was the same problems that you had, a little bit too tight of areas. And I wanted something where I could just blast through. And also, just as like to Miller's point too, it's like there's so much going on in this world that it is so easy to get distracted or to even just have someone jump in front of your car and just like accidentally hit a civilian or, you know,
or drive into a bad situation that you would not should have driven into, which I did like 15 times, I think, in my short demo.
To be honest, it made me mad that I had to focus on the road because I was just like enamored by everything going on around me. And I'm like, oh, great. Now I have to actually pay attention. And I mean, I crashed into a lot of things, but I didn't get like, I got a little bit in trouble one time because I kind of hit a person. But other than that, like I was fine. But yeah, I was surprised with how much there actually is a reliance on the car. And I'm hoping that these next few months, they kind of iron out some kinks there because, or even like you said, just making it where maybe it was, we just had not a great first car. Because I know they told me you can go around the world and steal other cars. So does every car feel the same? Are there motorcycles maybe later on that you could grab and steal from people? Because you get the ability to do that. So it'll be interesting to see just how that feels. Because I know, you know, in Grand Theft Auto, you got those clunkers that would like just immediately with a few hits then be ready to blow up. But maybe with some of these, like you get a really nice car and the steering's better or, you know, whatever handling. So I'm curious to see just how far that goes. But I was not prepared for how much I think I was going to have to rely on the car, personally.
Yeah, I think they really want to get you out in the open world. And I kind of thought about Roach. I was like, I want to be able to like auto Roach to, you know, to where I'm going. So I can kind of like look through my menus and figure out what I'm doing. You know what I mean? Like kind of thing.
And there may be that, right?
There may be that.
I bet there's a way to take a taxi in this game. I'd be kind of surprised if there wasn't. We just might not have run into that system yet.
Yeah.
So, but I think that's an interesting thing. But that was definitely a big point in this game is the car and how it's going to affect. And I think that's one of those areas that I believe they will work on as we get a little closer. Yeah. And by the way, anytime I want to make very clear, anytime we're pointing out a system and some of the things we see as flaws, I think I speak for everyone here. The world is really awesome and easy to fall into. And anything that I had a problem with, I was like, I don't care. Like this world is very, very
it's
cool.
like this is a little
and like you want to be there and do more quests. Like they had to take it from us eventually. You know what I mean? Like we would have kept going.
What if there's car customization?
I'm sure there might be. I mean, I don't.
Yeah, that's what I'm just thinking. What if there's all these other layers to the? Okay, I'm just putting out there. That's how little, like in 4 hours, we saw that we can't even tell you right now.
I would have taken super legs, right? Like give me some like super legs that I can like run like car speed to things. I would have been down with that.
Yep.
I mean, I think we're talking about the time we had with it, and that 4 hours on the surface feels like it's a lot, and the reason that it didn't. And one of the things that distinguishes this game beyond just the depth of the world is the narrative complexity of what you're dealing with. You will often have, if the early stuff we played is any indication, extended sequences of conversations with other characters in the world that, I mean, like one stands out to me, which is that you meet this kind of like mysterious, beautiful woman in a bar who's like your client. Right, this character named Evelyn. She very much fulfills that role of the like the woman in a detective noir story, right? Who gets the ball rolling of what's happening, and she's sort of like, what's she all about, and where does she come from? It's all a mystery. And like the exchange with her, it's not in another game. It would be like you walk up to her at the bar, she has 5 lines of text, you have 5 lines of text, and then you go on your mission. That's not what happens here. You go and you have a conversation that ranges across multiple spaces in the bar. You go one place, and then she takes you to another place where you can privately speak, and then she takes you to another place after that. And through it all, it has a very cinematic quality to the way you're interacting with her, even as there are regular moments where you're offering choices, right? Where she's saying like, hey, what if we just did this job ourselves and we cut out the fixer, right? And that's just part, and you're making that decision on the fly. And that combined, just this interaction with this person might be 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Right? Of you just kind of talking it through, having this sort of cinematic, filmic kind of engagement with another character in the world before things move on to whatever's happening afterwards. And now the other side of that is the people who are expecting this Cyberpunk game to be like some sort of action fest where you're just jumping from one gunfight to the next. I think this isn't what this is. It is focused on that aspect of role-playing games, which is narrative back and forth with characters in the world. But that from my playthrough anyway, took up a lot of my time, is just conversations with people.
Yeah. I think that's a great point too, that like everyone is kind of at odds and there's different ways to approach everything. Yeah. In one particular case, it was like, hey, a corpo showed up and said, hey, you're going to go make this deal to buy this thing for this other fixer you're working for. I want you to pay them with my money. I want you to work for me in this case. Like, I don't like you, but I want you to work for me. He hands me this thing, and you're like, well, you just don't want me to you don't want me to just use your money. Why do you want me to use their money? And they're like, You're like, this is totally bugged. And they're like, yeah, it's totally bugged. So you walk away from that conversation. So you have choices. You're like, okay, am I double crossing who I'm working for? Am I going in here? Am I going to try to get this? Am I going to make the choice of using their money? Am I going to make the choice of using my money? I can even open up my inventory and actually hack the chip that I was given to remove their bug before I do it. So I could pay it with their money and then turn on them later when I decide when they're like, who paid who, right? I go in to make this deal, which is like a double deal. I've already been double crossed. You get double crossed a lot. So I've already been double crossed.
And you're going to go for a triple cross.
Yeah. And so I walk in and I had made a deal with this other guy. I believe is he the Butcher? Was he the Butcher was the original guy? Kind of spacing on names.
There's Dex, who's the initial.
He's the big guy. But basically these renegade guys and the new boss comes in and he's like, well, that was the deal with the old guy. You got to deal with me, and I want my money, and I want you to pay. And I was like, I'm not paying twice. It's like, you're paying twice, or you're not getting out of here alive, kind of thing. Or you want the goods, and I'm like, well, I want the goods, you know. And I'm sitting there, and he's screaming at me, and I'm like, you, and just blow his head off. I was just like, this is not a good deal. Like, just
see like, that coming. By the way, I knew that's what I haven't talked with you about that moment, Andy, but I knew that's what you did there.
It's totally what I did. And he was like, there were all these options, and I had made all these choices. And when he got in my face and was like, this is how things are going to go, I was like, wrong. We're going to throw down right now. And that set down the path, right? And you get those kind of choices, and eventually you kind of walk out and they're like, well, what happened in there? And you're like, I got you your thing, get away from me. And like the corporal's like, well, we need to work together in the future. And I'm like, yeah, we're gonna work together. Like, so it really does feel, the world does feel really alive, and you can kind of make those choices all along the way. I do laugh. I think the number one choice you make in this game so far is sit. You sit a lot. As it kind of does those kind of like conversations that go around, but there are a lot of interesting choices within those, and a lot of interesting ways those play out. And one of the more interesting ways that I want to talk about with you guys was, which asked first is, what did you do in that situation?
I was going to tell you bypassed a difficult boss fight because you did that. Like, you fought immediately when you entered that room. But like, there's a whole nother area that you can go to, and you have to fight him later on. You could have given him the chip that has a virus laced on it. And when you do that, he obviously gets pissed, and the other company comes in and kind of attacks his people. But then he's waiting for you at the end because it's a mad like scramble escape sequence.
And you have like a boss fight.
Yeah, you have a big boss fight. Yeah, you didn't even see that.
They didn't even know because I was the boss. I'm the boss in this
game. You just blew him away before he ever got to be a boss.
You could tell him and he thanks you, and then he just lets you walk off with the thing because you saved him from that and gave him a heads up. There's a lot of different. What I ended up doing was I was mad at him and I was like, fine, take the chip with the virus on it. I don't care the virus. And then I had to go through that sequence, but that's how I found my good friend, the shotgun. So I'm not going to complain because that's what I did to love the guns. So whatever. What'd you do, Miller?
I mean, there were sections of that I didn't even get to because I was doing open world stuff for so long. I mean, we were talking about going to do, I was while I was supposed to be focusing on that, I was like off sneaking my way through a gang hideout, taking dudes out. So, I think it has that quality to the game of like putting control and agency in your hands pretty early on, right? Like pretty early after your life path intro and that initial mission. Kind of like, okay, well, go do what you want to do in this world.
There's also a sub event in that quest where you could have freed the former boss because he was sitting in a prisoner cell, and then that would have determined like who ends up ultimately prevailing in the Militech, this other corporation's battle for power over another corp. So it's very interesting how you can just walk by and miss something, or maybe like your path will be different because you saw this area of a quest or missed this boss battle, or which sometimes you want to miss the boss battles. I got good loot out of it, so I wasn't angry.
That guy, apparently you can let him go and you'll interact with him later in the game.
Exactly. And then it will determine like kind of who prevails in this one like big corporation fight for power. It's really interesting.
The implication is that that initial big story mission that we all saw bits and pieces of is part of a longer chain that connects to this big heist that you're putting together. And I don't think any of us got to see the full scope of that. But the idea is that this initial thing you're doing to get this like military spider bot thing is to help with the heist, right? You're working towards a much bigger job, and that connects up with that woman who we meet up in the bar, Evelyn, right? Not Meredith.
Evelyn's the bar. Right. Meredith is the one who's with Militech.
With Militech, right? But Evelyn's a whole different thing. She's the sort of mysterious woman in the bar who like is actually trying to put this heist thing together. Is my understanding, and she's the one we haven't even talked about this yet, but she's the one that introduces this whole other system that the game has going called Brain Dance, which is a weird word. But what it basically is that this is like the prevailing entertainment format of this time period in history in 2077. The idea is that it's like a fully immersive virtual reality where you actually feel the emotions and memories of somebody else's experiences.
Yep.
And so they talk about in their like lore guidebook, they talk about the idea that there's sort of influencers just like there are today, but the influencers are people who are brain dance influencers, and so their followers are people who are experiencing those people's lives vicariously, and that's why they're stars, right? Is that they have interesting lives.
Yeah, they reminded me of the movie Strange Days. I don't remember if you remember that movie.
I don't remember that movie.
You don't remember that movie? It's a weird movie, but they have a whole thing where they keep wearing these units on their head where they can watch. Like people would buy, like there were people that were interested in like people getting killed, like they wanted to experience things that same way. But it's like it's an interesting movie. It's not the greatest movie ever, but it's kind of a weird
idea, right?
Yeah, same idea.
I mean, and so anyway, it becomes a tool within the game world for really interesting narrative opportunities, for them to introduce new ideas, and it's used by a lot of people in the world for sex and for experiencing violence that they wouldn't be able to have otherwise. But you learn pretty early on that it's not it has broader applications for somebody like you who's like a merc who needs to get information. And so you're able to actually like edit these brain dances on the fly when you're experiencing them and get additional information. So while you can just sit there and live through the memory without interacting with it if you want to, you can also then rewind the memory, leave the body of the person that you're in, and learn more information. And so, for instance, like let's say in one of the ones we were doing, we got to relive a convenience store robbery. And we were able to leave the body of the robber who was about to go into the convenience store and float over and hear the conversation inside the convenience store ahead of when he got there, right? Because his audio implants picked those up, even though he didn't really hear it.
Yeah.
And so you move through these different layers of the memory, of the visual memory, the audio memory, even the thermal memory. If the person who was recording the experience had those modifications and augments available to them.
It kind of reminded me of like the detective mode in Batman.
It totally, but a little bit more complicated.
Way more complicated because it has like a heat mode, it has an audio mode, things like that you thermal, I should say, mode that you go through. To your point, but you're basically recreating the scene and trying to. I mean, I think don't they all have eventually some kind of moment that you're trying to solve, right? At least.
I mean, I don't know. The ones we saw were definitely kind of like the tutorial ones a little bit. But you see that robbery, which by the way, that particular brain dance is like a black market one that is for people who want to experience what it's like to die, because at the end of it, the guy that you're inside of gets shot. And so your character V like freaks out because this is the first time he or she has been in a brain dance like that. And they get pulled out suddenly because the character dies. And the guy who's running, the woman who's running the brain dance is like, yeah, don't worry about it. It's fine. Let's keep going. And then they put you in another brain dance that's relevant to the heist, where Evelyn recorded one of her own experiences going to this like penthouse suite to have a little tryst with some high up exec. And while you're there, you're able to like investigate the penthouse and find, where the object of the heist is going to be.
That you later need to go get.
That you're later going to need to go get.
It's your info. And it's also interesting too, because you have to, it's got a lot of buttons you need to navigate to like find. And it has some little highlights that are like, hey, on thermal, there's probably something here you need to do. But I spent a lot of time kind of like trying to really get my grips on the controls and find what I needed to find in that space, because there were a lot. I think I had to check like 5 or 6 different things that they were all like, wrongo. I had to keep looking to find the answer that I needed to in that space. And it's when you're moving between those different realms, I found it a little clumsy. Did you guys catch on a little bit quick? I mean, like it's pretty complicated.
Like the driving, it was one of those things that I thought like, this could use a little more refinement. Or even maybe some more, like even just some contextual clues would have helped. Because as an early tutorial version of what it was trying to talk about, I got lost. And it's just, I think part of that's just that they made a really interesting and complex system. And maybe I just hadn't wrapped my head fully around what I could do with it yet. But it's certainly cool. I mean, it's an interesting idea.
And I feel like that's how you get Keanu. Right? You know what I mean? That your ability to see these visions is how you see him, because he kind of felt like he was not always there in person with you. Like as he comes, which we didn't get to him. There was no Keanu in our experience, but they have said that he's a big part of this adventure.
Yeah. I mean, that character that he plays is a really central figure in the broader fiction that wasn't, that's been around since the tabletop RPG started. And so the idea that he's still here in some important way is significant to the story, because he shouldn't be, right? Like he was this big rock star in like the 2010s and 2020 before he kind of disappeared. And so the idea that he's still around somehow and he's appearing to you is for people who are like who know the fiction, that's going to be like a big mystery.
Yeah, super interesting. So I think we all had a good time playing around with it. So like, Miller, did you have any other experiences in there that like were like real highlights for you as far as like in your play?
I think that there were there were lots of little things that I found that I was excited to dig into more. I went shopping at one point and got a katana. And I was like, oh, this is pretty sweet. The melee system's pretty cool. Not unfamiliar to anybody who's seen melee in a first-person game before. It's light, heavy attacks, blocks. You break blocks with heavy attacks. You can counter if you hit block right before somebody hits you. That kind of thing. And that applies both to unarmed combat, like the fighting rings that Kim had talked about earlier, but also when you get, more powerful weapons like a katana. So I thought that was pretty cool. More than anything else, I think my takeaway was a sense of really wanting to see more of this world realized. Like it just felt like we kind of scratched the surface to see kind of the general direction that things are going. And right as we kind of got out of that was it. It was 4 hours gone. So I'm stoked. I'm really I was excited about this game for a lot of reasons. I am more excited after having played it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, it definitely gives you that kind of, your world. It all kind of gets turned on its head, and you start building your new life. Like kind of thing is like that kind of inflection point. And like you said, you're just starting to be like, okay, I got to do these jobs. I got to do this. Here's all the tools, and then kind of like curtain, right? Yeah. And like you're just starting to get familiar with the world and kind of get your direction and where you're going in this space and how you're going to navigate it. Kim, highlights for you.
Oh man, it's like even just
do we need that 6 months you were going to require earlier?
This game is too big. It feels like at certain points, so it's really hard even to break down. But like it had what I like in an open world, which is like dynamic events popping up. I like that sense of discovery, which is like, I could stumble around this corner, find a blueprint, find a better weapon. You never know kind of what's there, and all those side quests to do in conjunction with everything else. But then you throw on that CD Projekt Red is really good with storytelling. And even from the little quests we did, I know, Miller had talked about like Evelyn, like I sat there and I'm like, I don't know if I should trust this girl. And then I kind of went back and like, you're trying to unearth as much information as you can, because it's like the same thing that The Witcher did so well, which is kind of having those shades of gray to every situation. Well, at the end of the day, you're going to have to pick one person to side with, and you just hope you did the best. I think the thing that I'm most interested is seeing and I couldn't even tell this when I demoed like The Witcher 3, and it was what made the review so fun, was watching how all your choices and, kind of the ripple effect of them throughout that world and how they come back to you. And I feel like that's something obviously we weren't able to see. But I am excited because this is like the grandest stage I've ever seen them do it on. And even just having the level of gameplay variation of how you can play your characters and upgrade. And like I said, for an RPG fan like me, I love that I can tinker with so many different stats and, get those perks and all that. And it really does feel like a good combination of everything I like. Now, whether it can execute on all those levels, time will tell, but I'm really excited. They've kept a lot of the story under wraps due to spoiler reasons. But so far I play, like, I'm intrigued by this world. I'm intrigued by how I'm going to create my V within this world and who I'm going to choose to align with at the end of the day, and what other interesting characters pop up. Because as you said, we didn't even see, Johnny Silverhand, as we played Keanu's character. And I think there's a lot of potential there. So right now I'm like, all right, this world has all the elements that I like in an RPG open world. And now I just want to see where this frickin' story is going to go and how it's going to, is it going to be like The Witcher had such good dilemmas in it, and layering on those quests, trying to turn you in different directions so you could side with different characters. Oh, I see it this person's way. Oh, but now I see it this person's way. And it kind of plays those mind games with you as you go through, and you have to decide like, okay, what should I really do in those situations? And that's what makes those games, in my opinion, they're the hardest part of it, but they challenge me. And I like when things end up unpredictable, because too many times in games we have that good or bad choice and we boil things down to that. And that's definitely not going to happen in Cyberpunk at all. There's just a lot going on. So yeah, I am super stoked to finally like dive into that story and see where it's going to lead.
Oh, that was a good go off there, Kim. I thought you really nailed it there. It's a lot of things that I think are really, really, really important to the game. You got me excited there. I think that's very true. It's like you would see options in your conversation tree that would be like, you don't have enough tech in this area, you don't have enough this. Like whenever you look at those options, you're like, oh, would that have been the better answer, right? Or even as a corporo when I was playing, and I would be like, I always kind of picked the corporate answer. I don't even know why they didn't just auto choose that for me, because I was just going to be like, it's my special option. It's special. It's mine. I'm going to use it, right? Like I want to see where those things kind of bring. And it even brought up a couple. Like one of the situations was when I first encountered the corporation. They were like, I was getting the download from the fixer, and he was like, "This is what's going to happen." I was like, "All right, I'll check it out." And I was like, "Oh, that corporate lady's in trouble, and if she doesn't get this fixed, they're going to kill her. So she's in big trouble, and I can take that to my advantage." Like from what I know as a corporate player. So, I go to her and she's like, "Where did you learn this information?" It's just like, lady, I can read you like a book, right?
I've been in your shoes.
And I think it's really cool that it plays into those kind of those roles you're playing. And even early on, to your point, Kim, I feel like I'm just pulling on threads on something I have no idea what I'm pulling on, right? Like the every single little bit was interesting, and I really liked what I played, but I don't know how it fit in the world. I don't know how it fit versus my original kind of strife with the corporation that I had. I don't know where it leads me. You know what I mean? Like but it was intriguing. That's what's so funny about it. It was kind of nothing and everything at once, which sounds ridiculous. But I think that's the tip of the iceberg of where this game is going and how the world is being built. So you're right on there, Kim. I couldn't agree more with your analysis.
I think it's a game that like begs to be played by in the spirit of the world that is being presented, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, I know not everybody feels like they like to get into the RP thing when they play their MMOs and their role-playing games or whatever. And it's not exactly that I'm saying that, but it's a game that presumes a certain level of like, you got to understand that this world is dark and troubling, and you're not everybody's gonna come out the other side okay, right? And so there's some degree to which, I think it's common in a role-playing game world for everybody to be like, you know what, I'm the Paragon guy. I always like do the good guy thing. Or I'm the bad guy, and I always like go in and I just like to kill everybody and do the most evil thing I can. And that is really, I don't know, I kind of think that's not the question here in this game. Right. The question is like, how am I gonna have my guy be alive tomorrow? Mm-hmm. Right? And like the people I care about, the characters in the world that I've chosen to like ally myself with, how am I gonna watch out for them? Right? And much beyond that is not, I mean, maybe there'll be some aspect of this that you save the world or something, but they've really gone for that classic like detective noir vibe of like, this is like a personal thing, like a personal story that plays out in a really big world. And I think if you approach the game that way, for at least from what I've seen, it'll be more fun. Yeah. Because you'll just constantly be thinking about like, not like what's the moral choice here or whatever, but instead you'll be inhabiting this guy or girl who lives in 2077 when tech and corporations run everything. You've had a rough childhood. You've never had choices. And finally, you do have some choices and you do have some agency for the first time. What are you going to do with it? And 100%. I'm excited about that.
Yeah, it has that feeling too of like everyone I met, like Kim kind of mentioned too, was like, she's going to totally stab me in the back. They're going to totally take him prisoner and kill him and like make me watch. Like it has like, you can just feel like how the intrigue is going to play out. And obviously you're going to have some choice in that, but you can feel like that everyone's in danger, including yourself, to your point, Matt. Right on. So we have more coming on Cyberpunk. It is, we're giving you a little early thing that it's going to be, we're going to announce the cover next week. So we are doing a Cyberpunk cover. And so these guys, yay. And so it is, and by the way, there's lots of surprises. One in particular I wish I could tell you about, but I can't quite yet. But I think it's pretty exciting. You're going to be excited when you get your print issue at home. But we have more to talk about there. We'll go into more details in that space. And we wanted to make sure in the podcast today we got a chance to talk to you about our experience and how excited we are about the game, and what we enjoyed about it. But please let us know if you've got any questions. Podcast@GameInformer.com. If you enjoyed this conversation, boy, we have some great conversations on here. So you should follow us. You should subscribe. You should hit the bell. Why not? Life's short, right? Soon it's going to be 2077, and you don't want to get there without being prepared. And so November 19th is when the game hits. We'll be back. I'm going to be joined by Dan Tack and Brian Shea, and Alex Stadnick will be back. We're going to go through Avengers, some Pokemon, and some exciting community emails. So thank you all for listening. Thank you, Matt.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Kim.
Thank you.
And thank you, Alex, as always, super producer, for joining me for this segment. And I think I can speak for us all when I say we're all looking forward to Cyberpunk this November. We'll be right back. Hello, and welcome back to the Game Informer Show. I'm your host, Andy McNamara. I know we've been gone for so long and you missed us so greatly, but here we are again. But look at this. A wild panel appeared. We have Dan, the Jacket Tack. How are you doing, Dan?
It's great to be here, Andy. Thank you so much for having me on the show. And I loved the Pokemon intro there. That was just amazing. Loved it.
I'm so clever, right? Everyone at home was like, wow, that is so clever.
I actually thought it was. I thought it was brilliant.
If you could have everyone roll their eyes at the same moment in time, that was the moment in time when everyone rolled their eyes at the same moment. It was right there. Well, good to see you, Dan. You're looking sharp as always. Also with us is Brian Shea. How you doing, Brian?
Doing all right. How are you?
Doing okay. Doing a podcast. What's up?
Oh, that's what we're doing?
Yeah, I know. Isn't it weird?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I thought we were just hanging.
And of course, Alex Stadnick. How you doing?
Good. I'm still recovering from that intro, but
thank you for sticking with us, everybody. That was we had a long conversation about Cyberpunk 2077. There's a lot to talk about, and it's a really exciting game. So if you're just joining us here in the second half, which you probably are not doing, check it out. It's a really fun conversation. And in this segment, we're going to do some Pokemon. We're going to talk about Avengers from Crystal Dynamics and Square Enix coming up. And so let's start with the Pokemon. Let's get to the Avengers, and then let's get to the community emails. So Pokemon, first of all, this is what blew my mind. This happened in a meeting earlier this week. I was like, they're like, hey, we got the Pokemon thing tomorrow. And I was like, the Pokemon thing already happened. They showed Snap. We're all done. Like, we don't have any more. And they were like, no, there are multiple Pokemon meetings directs this week. And I was like, what kind of insane world are we living in?
Yeah,
so,
Andy. I mean, they teased at the end of the last one that they had a big project to announce this week, which everybody was like, oh, it must be like the heavy hitter of the group. I mean, if Snap was just lumped in with all these other mobile games, like this must be the heavy hitter.
Okay, do you believe, do they really truly need two different shows about Pokemon to get out the Pokemon information?
I mean, if they're announcing like a next mainline entry or like a remake of like one of the most beloved games, I would say that would be warranted. Like they really built it up.
In this case, we got Pokemon Unite, which is a MOBA style game. So was it worth it?
Womp womp.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. My call, if they don't need two shows to do Pokemon, was right. I want to be very clear that I was correct here, but let's discuss.
Hey, but Andy, this one had a Tencent partnership, so that's probably why.
But they announced that a long time ago, or at least it leaked a long time ago that they were going to work with Tencent, and even I think the developer that's working on this.
Yeah, Timmy.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, so that's been a while now. So okay, so why in the world is there a Pokemon MOBA? What happened?
Put it plainly, it is like the most soulless incarnation. Like just grab the MOBA elements, copy and paste the Pokemon assets on top, go to town. There you go. Enjoy your game. We made you this brand new game. Please like it. Nope.
So,
I'm not playing this garbage.
I'm going to play devil's advocate here for a minute because I just like making fun of Pokemon because I know it makes people mad. So I kind of do that for some degree because it's kind of enjoyable. But on the other side, like there's not a lot of like my first MOBA like kind of thing out there, and Pokemon's probably a pretty good like, hey, introduction to being involved with MOBAs, because it has a lot of the major elements, but not all of them. Correct?
There's like 50 mobile MOBAs. All right, you probably know of only one or two, but there's tons of them. But they're all the same, more or less, you know. And it's all about getting those hooks in you to get you to spend money. You know, the mobile game scene, I cannot advocate for its methods.
So you're really angry about this.
I'm not angry, but see, you know, that's the other side of it. I can be like, wow, this was a disappointment. I'm not gonna I don't care about it. I'm not gonna spend my day thinking about it. I'm not gonna go on forums and post about how much I hate it. But I'm just gonna be quietly disappointed and say, well, we got Snap, so that's really awesome. And then I'm just gonna completely forget about this other ghastly, the other pun right there, thing that they revealed. It's just like, you know, and I get if you want to be disappointed, I think it's okay. I've seen a lot of people like, you know, you don't always have to be hyped for something. You can also be disappointed for something.
Yeah.
I mean, they did hype it up. They did say it was a big game, and it is. See, by the way, I bet this thing's going to make a crap load of money.
Yeah. I mean, like Andy said, there's plenty of like like Dan said, there's plenty of my first MOBAs, but like none of them have the Pokemon license. So like you look at Niantic, and they had Ingress, which, you know, had its audience and everything, but Pokemon Go is what blew up, even though it was essentially the same concept.
Yeah,
so,
fair enough.
Let me turn this around on you a little bit. So if that's your argument, then would you say that, you know, perhaps Pokemon is primarily a kid's license?
I would say it's a kid-friendly license. I wouldn't say primarily.
Kid-friendly family license. So this is a free-to-play title that is targeting children. Yes?
Okay, I mean that's
going
never
on
happened before, has it?
Hey Dan, it's not free to play; it's free to start.
I just want to make sure that we have all the elements clear here, so that when little Timmy plays his first MOBA, he's also learning how to use his first credit card. You know, that's what I see happening here.
Is Nintendo? Do they have a Pokemon credit card you can get yet?
Ooh, you know, if they don't, they really should. Yeah. They really should. Actually, I'd probably get one. So don't.
Yeah. See, we found your limits. We found your.
What
limits.
if you could put Gengar on it?
Yeah, I'm not like, I don't think I'm unduly chastising it for those elements. Like, if you're going to use the argument that this is supposed to be super accessible and indeed, you know, marketed toward a younger segment, then that comes with all the caveats that free to play has with that segment as well.
Free to start.
All right, free to start.
Sorry. But before we started this, I was mocking. I can't believe that Nintendo keeps saying, or you know, that Game Freak keeps saying free to start. It's just the most ridiculous statement in the world. To me, it makes me laugh.
It's a fun one.
It's a fun one. So Brian, are you going to play? You're a big Pokemon fan. You'll check it out.
Yeah, I'll check it out. I downloaded the Pokemon Cafe mix onto my phone when it released today, so I'm going to check that out as well. Or yesterday, whenever it released. Haven't started it up yet. I've been too busy cranking away on Avengers stuff on our website.
Yeah, I like how you segued. You were like, I don't want to talk about.
Yeah, that was too early, man. That was too early.
Andy, I'm done.
Well, I mean, there's that.
Like, ask me more questions about Pokemon.
I mean, even Riot Games is making kind of like the My First MOBA with that, like the what is it, League of Legends?
The Wild Rift version.
Wild Rift, yeah. So certainly. It's like what for consoles and mobile, right?
The whole, that's right. But the whole concept, like we've had accessible MOBAs for a while, if that's what you want to do. This is a late MOBA. It's.
Are there MOBAs available on Switch?
I believe that there is at least one. There had that one. Was it a Tencent one, or was it a NetEase one? There was one other major one that went over to the Switch.
I mean, I think the reality is that a Pokemon MOBA on Switch is going to get a lot I
can't argue that. I cannot argue that at all. And
what if this
God forbid,
like...
me and Brian are going to start playing. I'm going to be like, this is the best game ever.
What if this revitalizes
I will take a bite out of this hat, okay? I will do that.
Done deal.
Done deal. All right. So
just as it's okay to get hype about something that you see, it's okay to be like, wow, that does not look good.
Yeah,
you don't have to rule your life. I'm not going to lose any sleep over it.
Yeah.
There's plenty of other things I can lose sleep over. But you know, it's definitely created a hype vacuum, if you ask me.
Okay, very clear.
After hot on the heels of Snap.
Dan hates Pokemon. That's what we're getting out of it. That's exactly what you're saying. You and you know, you have a hat on that doesn't have a duck on it, that has a ghost on it.
You want a duck on?
At Pokemon.
Ghost Pokemon are my favorite, so
yeah,
that's true. I know that about Dan.
So there was that is not the only action this week. There was some other action this week, and that was the Avengers. Which just to go a little history here is that they had a reveal at E3 a while ago. Everyone, did they ever remember E3s?
What are those?
So yeah, exactly. What are those? Where they first showed it, and it kind of got dragged a little bit, but there were people excited, obviously, with the Marvel license and the Avengers. There's a lot of fans about that. You played it in Germany?
Yeah.
Right.
So I saw it at E3, like the hands-off behind closed doors demo that they were doing. Then at Gamescom in Germany last August, I went there and played with I played that same mission, the A-Day on like the Golden Gate Bridge type of mission. And I thought it played better than it looked, but I also thought that like Iron Man and Thor, despite like Black Widow, Hulk, and Captain America playing pretty well, Iron Man and Thor, which should probably be the most fun, kind of sucked.
So like at that particular time.
Yeah, in August when I played it last year, they were kind of boring. They kind of were floaty. The like you should feel awesome playing as Iron Man and flying around in a power suit and blasting people with different kinds of lasers and rockets, but it just kind of felt boring. And same thing with Thor. Like the combat felt floaty. It didn't have like any kind of weight when you hit the enemies with your hammer. It didn't feel like the power fantasy that game should deliver for those particular characters. Hulk felt amazing, like running around and just grabbing people in one guy in each hand and smashing them together. That felt really cool, but I just didn't feel super powerful aside from the fact that I could fly and beat up guys like I could in an Uncharted game as those other guys.
So let's go forward here a bit. So you played it then, it was okay. So they had this event, which you also got an early preview of, where you got a chance to play it before the event they had today. And at this event, about 30 minutes long, I think, they went through and started to go through and start to detail a number of the bits and pieces about the game, including that it's got kind of that looter shooter Destiny elements to it. They showed some things about how the game works, how you'll like engage missions, how the various powers work together. So there was a big download, and you spent a lot of time talking to not only playing the game, right?
Well, I didn't play it. I just watched the gameplay over and over and over again, and dissected it, and then I had an interview with several members of the Crystal Dynamics team.
Okay, excellent. Cool. So did you watch it again today?
Yes, I've now watched it, I think, 4 times all the way through.
Wow.
So is the ending still a surprise every time? Like you didn't know it was Bruce Willis was dead, did you? You like did not know.
I still can't believe it. I'm going to go back and watch it again.
Yeah, you really should. So what have you learned since Germany and now to this day? What do we know? What do we know about this Avengers title?
So, like back then we didn't know that Kamala Khan was one of the main characters, who is Miss Marvel. So basically, when in the original demo, they're kind of celebrating the opening of the Avengers West Coast headquarters in San Francisco, and during the festivities, the Golden Gate Bridge is attacked by a group of enemies led by Taskmaster. That go and fight him as the other Avengers, and then it turns out that was a distraction, and they destroy the Avengers helicarrier, and it blows up a big chunk of San Francisco. And it rains down like this toxic mist called Terrigen mist that was, the power source for that helicarrier. And it turns out that mutates a bunch of people into Inhumans, giving them powers. And this, that leads to politicians thinking like, oh, the superpowered people are a danger to society because they can't be trusted because stuff like this happens.
That's really new twist in the comic book.
I know.
Yeah, I've never heard that before.
I was a kid too. Like I think I watched it.
We are all feeling some type of way right now. There's so much snark going on. It's ridiculous.
So Miss Marvel was or Kamala Khan was one of the people caught in the blast. So she got powers, and AIM is this company that is like, it's called Advanced Idea Mechanics, and it's like this tech giant that's based in San Francisco, as you might suspect a tech giant would be based. And it decides that it's going to propose a solution that, like, hey, instead of having these superpowered people protecting us, we should use science and technology to protect people, which, kind of is like a noble idea, and like one that I wish we used a little bit more in real life. But in this situation, it turns out the company is very corrupt and yeah. Who would have thought a corporation is corrupt? And it's led by...
Is this going to backfire on us? I sure hope this doesn't backfire on us.
Putting your trust in a large corporation turns out it backfires in this game because the leader, George Tarleton, was also mutated by this blast, and he has become Modok, which is M-O-D-O-K, and he is using his supreme intellect and just super genius tendencies. Like, he was already an engineer, and now this mist has made his brain grow enormous.
Mm-hmm.
And he is twisting the public perception against the Avengers and also doing weird experiments on the other Inhumans that have been caught in the blast. So Kamala Khan figures this out, and she goes and reunites the Avengers. That's her ultimate goal.
Okay.
And it seems like you have to go on missions, like individual missions. It seems like Bruce Banner is the first one that she reaches out to, and then they go to Tony Stark, and then so on and so on. It seems like Black Widow's probably next, followed by Thor, which we finally saw some gameplay outside of that original A-Day celebration. We saw a single-player mission of Thor's. So there's two kinds of missions in this game. There's hero missions, which are like hero-specific single-player missions that appear to be pretty cinematic in nature. And then there's Warzone, which is a 4-player experience. You can either do it online with up to 4 players, or you can do it solo offline with AI companions that are actually the characters that you customize. So like if I customize Hulk to look and play a certain way, and I'm playing as Iron Man solo in these missions, the Hulk that I customize will be joining me as an AI companion.
Are these like dungeons, kind of like a Destiny experience, or
the way they described it,
like more open?
It's more open, but also there are some that are like corridor and like indoor. And like the open ones, it says are like there's going to be like objective marks all over the map that you can go and complete, and like boss battles that will spawn, and you get rewards. So it does sound kind of like an open area in Destiny. But then they did say that some are also like closer quarters with like an emphasis on combat.
Okay.
So it seems like they might be pretty varied. I wouldn't be surprised if they add like dungeons and stuff.
No. And what's it called again?
What was that?
What's it called again?
Yeah, Warzone.
Yep, just wanted to make sure. I thought I was hearing that.
No.
Do we also have Kill Confirmed available for play?
God.
Event confirmed.
Hey, I don't think anyone can own Warzone. I think no one can own Warzone.
I guarantee we haven't seen the last war. This will definitely not be the last Warzone. We got Warzones coming for decades.
By the way, I heard there's another announcement from Pokemon next week, and it might just be Pokemon Warzone. Just letting you know.
I'm turning the stream off.
Next week,
podcast is done.
Honestly,
it's too much.
Pokemon Battle Royale would be way more attractive to me right now than a Pokemon MOBA.
Ooh.
Oh God.
Anywho.
It really would. Just think about you evolve to get a kill. Everybody starts in as a tier 1, and then you eventually get this giant Blastoise rampaging around because he's got like 10 kills. That'd be way cooler than the Pokemon Unite or whatever the hell it's called. All right.
Pokemon.
I love how we've gone on this tangent.
Yeah.
We are on fire.
I'm
today.
sorry.
We are on fire. No, I'm with you. I'm enjoying this. I'm having a great time. Brian Shea. So
Andy, you got some community emails?
Oh no! Tell us more about.
He's trying to segue again. Look at that.
So those are the two kinds of missions you can do. I would not be surprised if there are more kinds of missions that they're going to add, as kind of like, because they've said this is going to be like kind of like a live service game where even at the end of the stream today they were like, all right, next time we do one of these presentations, we're going to reveal the first post-launch hero, and all the post-launch heroes, villains, story arcs, and regions that they're planning on adding are going to be free of charge, which is nice.
Yeah.
So, and they said like there's going to be like the main story in like the base game is like, all right, the Avengers reassembling, Miss Marvel's origin story, and battling against AIM, the tech giant. And then they said that the world that is left behind from this arc is going to enable future arcs to happen. So like, all right, well, this is now the state of the world. now this villain who people are more familiar with, like I don't know who an example of that would be, but like this villain that what people know about is now coming into the game because of the situation that was presented in the base game. So it seems like this is like a good kind of jumping off point for what they're hoping to do long term.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they want this. They want this. Have they said that? Have you asked them in interviews, like directly? Like they want this to be kind of a like Avengers platform.
Yeah,
right?
They said years to come, hopefully.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. I would be in for that. Like, but first they have to, establish a fan base that would necessitate such a roadmap. Like it's cool. Like, they're like, hey, we're adding Captain Marvel 2 months after release. Like, look forward to that story arc. Awesome. I'm excited for that. But if they're like, all right, here's the next year of content, it's like, all right, well, first focus on getting like a good player base that will make it so you're not going to 6 months into this say, all right, guys, we're closing up shop. We're sunsetting Marvel's The Avengers.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that it does get the player base that it needs to kind of keep that alive. And I mean, there's an intricate gear and skill system that seems really cool. Like the way like you can just really customize your characters down like nitty gritty details. You can unlock custom outfits and emotes and all kinds of stuff. So there's a lot to do in the game at the very least. I mean, I would say that having not played it since August, I think the Thor gameplay that we saw looks a lot better than what I played when I was in Germany. And also when I asked Sean Eskeg, I think is how you pronounce it, who's the creative director at Crystal Dynamics, I asked him specifically, what did this delay do? He specifically was talking about like addressing fan feedback and like media feedback for people who had played it. And then I don't know if this is because he knows that like I said this back in Germany, or if he remembers me saying this, but he specifically referred to Thor and Iron Man. So I'm hoping that means that they fine-tuned those characters to like, make them feel a little bit more like what I was describing with what I wanted. Yeah. And also it shouldn't be that hard to get Thor feeling good when I think one of the combat directors or something was a combat designer on God of War.
Oh.
So it's like throwing a hammer around. You know who does something kind of similar to that? Kratos.
Yeah.
It should be pretty easy.
Brian, that's an axe, man. Come on.
Just chill, dog.
I think there's a lot of things that a lot of people that like follow games day to day have obviously like had a lot of opinions on this game, but let's be honest. To a lot of players out there, just having the Avengers on there and it being part of that universe, they're going to be thrilled to get to be, Iron Man regardless. You know what I mean? I think there's always that amount of excitement and fun, and especially being able to play with your friends. That adds a lot of elements to it that I think people will be attracted to. It does. The presentation today, I watched it. I did think it was interesting. It did feel a little disjointed when you're like, oh, we go to this map and we kind of like choose a mission that we go into, and I think that's where I think just players are just kind of having that disconnect because we want to be in that Avengers world. Like we want to do things there. And just like maybe that approach is like a little bit sudden, but I think until we spend time with it, it'll be hard to judge. Maybe there'll be so many things to do in there that you won't think about it.
You mean like in terms of like, you're saying like maybe we should have just had like a big open world instead of having like the helicarrier where you're selecting like where you want to go?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but I feel like, I think one of those things that like when I talk about Crystal Dynamics games, like I really liked the second Tomb Raider where you had kind of that like hub and spoke kind of system where you went off and you did things and like joined up with other people and it felt like you were in a place, right? And had a lot of those things.
I asked them about that as well. And the reason that they wanted to do it this way instead was to make it so like the Avengers were kind of like a global organization instead of like just, oh, we're just in San Francisco so we can go here and here. Whereas like this let them go to like, all right, we can go to Europe now, or we can go to Earth's orbit, or we can go underwater. And you just like choose where you want to fly your helicarrier instead of like having to be like, all right, now Hulk's going to run over to the eastern seaboard now.
Yeah, sure enough. Yeah. But I mean, it's not like it's a world where a bunch of people have superpowers where they can just like instantly be somewhere across the globe in an instant. I mean, it's not a world like that. So we wouldn't have any like those options. They got to take the bus, the transit system,
I forgot about the subway minigame.
Yeah. I mean, they got to get all that stuff done. No, I think that's a fair response.
So back to one of the things you said with like wanting to play with your friends. One thing that they announced this week as well was this is right before the War Table presentation, even like I think this is the day before, where they said if you buy the PS4 or the Xbox One version, you can upgrade to the PS5 or Xbox Series X version free of charge, and it's going to be a launch title on those systems. Not only that, but your save file transfers, so you don't have to start over, and you can play with people in your same console family. So, like, if I have the PS4 version and I upgrade to the PS5 version, and my friend that I play with still has the PS4 version, I can still play with him while he's on PS4, which seems really cool. And they also detailed some of the advantages the PS5 version will have over the PS4 version, which they were doing what every other developer in the world is doing, which is touting the SSD and like, hey, this is going to make it so we can load these enormous worlds almost instantly. And graphic fidelity is obviously a big thing. But it seems like they're like, as soon as we got that PS5 dev kit, we like rushed to develop a PS5 version, and then they shortly after announced an Xbox Series X. They're like, we'll let you know about the Xbox Series X features, but the PS5 version, let me tell you. So that's kind of an interesting thing that I think more developers I hope will do in the near future.
I think it's going to be expected behavior for a lot of people.
Yeah, you said cross family but not cross play, correct? So like
that's what they've said so far. They've said Xbox One or Xbox One people can play with Xbox Series X, and PS4 can play with PS5, and that's how you upgrade as well. So like if I have the PS4 version and I buy an Xbox Series X, I can't upgrade cross family.
Gotcha. That's kind of a bummer. I want crossplay for everything, but
of course. I mean that should be the standard going into this next generation, but it seems like there's still some red tape.
Yeah.
I know there's some people on the chat that really had some reaction to the point that they brought up that some of the skins were only going to be available in an online marketplace.
Yeah.
I feel like that's pretty standard in most, persistent world games. It's hard to get mad at them for wanting to do that, but certainly people
especially in a game where they're promising all of like the actual post-release content, like stories and characters and maps and everything are all going to be free. So you have to expect there's going to be some sort of monetization to support that that kind of live service approach. I mean, Destiny does it. Like all live service games have some form of premium currency to buy some of that stuff. I don't know. I mean, they said like there's all kinds of ways. Like, you get cosmetics and emotes through completing missions. You get them through like solving puzzles in the world, or like collecting different like collecting collectibles and bringing them back, almost like engrams in Destiny. And they'll give you certain gear and outfits that way.
Yeah, they pointed to like doing things like on a harder mode or something like that.
Yeah, there's like iconic
challenges.
Yeah, like iconic outfits. You need to do like the iconic mission chain, which I'm not sure exactly what that means, but they're like, to get like the character's most iconic look, you have to do this certain task. And then they said, and then there are some some things that you have to buy with real money.
But that did make me laugh. That is the only thing that's been weird with this one. It's just like they're like, you need to you can do these things to look like Thor, and it's like, thank God I can get Thor out of the jeans and t-shirt. Like it's just not, you know what I mean? There's just not sweet. It's just not a power fantasy of Marvel I have. Do you know what I mean? Like, oh, sweet. Like, can we get him in like some shorts and flip flops and maybe like sleeveless t-shirt? That would be great.
That's his alter ego, Donald Blake.
It's his iconic look from the 1988 classic Adventures in Babysitting. God, I hope I got the year right. I think I'm wrong in there. Anyway.
Anywho.
So you've covered this game a lot. I think I'm definitely a wait and see at this point. I think it can be a lot of fun. I like persistent world games. I'm definitely into those. I like when there's things to collect. And it's really hard to get that perception on it. It is hard. I think they've had a hard time because they've not let a lot of people play. Mm-hmm. That it's hard to be like, I can't tell if that game looks fun to play or not. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, does the combat fun? Is the combat not fun? I think that's the only question I've really that it kind of have to be answered for me. How about you? I mean, you spent so much time with it.
That's the biggest question for me too. Like, seeing as how I played it in August and I was kind of like 50-50 or 60-40 on which characters I liked. But there is going to be a beta coming out in before the September release. So I think that should definitely answer a lot of questions. But yeah, I mean, I'm hopeful on it. I'm definitely going to pick it up when it comes out. Whether or not I'm going to love it as much as I should, being a big Marvel fan.
Because you played the mobile game a lot.
Oh yeah, I still play it every day. Marvel Strike Force.
Yeah. Yeah. So I know you're a fan.
You're gonna love that new Pokemon game.
Get out of here! Stop
it's
it!
Not a MOBA. It's a turn-based game.
You know, what's funny is during that whole conversation, all I could see in Dan's eyes were Pokemon Unite. Pokemon Unite. He couldn't stop thinking about Pokemon. Brian was talking, complete blank from Dan.
No,
he could not stop focusing on Pokemon Unite.
I was really excited about the story of Morduck. And
Morduck? It's not Morduck. It's not Morduck.
That's what we need is more duck. Boom.
I don't think I was properly caffeinated for this episode.
I thought about getting
I'm trying.
I thought about getting another cup of coffee for this, and I really wish I did.
Yeah. So, my one question to you guys that I still don't think they've answered, and maybe I've missed it, is because as Shay said at the end of the stream, they said look for our next war tables to be new post-launch character, beta, like all that kind of stuff. Do we get the vibe that the characters that they've shown thus far are the ones we're starting with, and there's not going to be anything else?
I asked them that, and they would not comment. Okay. So I would imagine, I would not be surprised if we got like one more before launch, but we'll see. But when I talked to Crystal Dynamics, they pointed out, like, I was like, oh, like, you know, how are we supposed to, like, are you trying to fuel the fires of like theories, like within fan bases of like who's coming next, like Marvel Cinematic Universe movies always do, where it's like, oh, that looks like Thor's hammer in the post-credit scene. It's like, all right,
they're definitely going to do that.
That's what they said. They said that, like, the example they gave was like, oh, you're going to be like playing this scene, and you're going to be like, oh, AIM has this underwater base. I wonder if that ever leads anything. And then you'll find this, and then you'll do this, and then you'll realize, oh, all these different hints all tied together to tell us what's happening now. Which I said, oh, so that means you're getting Namor, right? And he just laughed and was like, I can't say anything.
Yeah. Okay.
No, but the big twist is it's Aquaman. And like all of a sudden DC's in there and everybody's messed up. And they're like,
wild.
But however,
that would be a big
if you go to GameInformer.com, you will see that I spotted something in the gameplay of Thor's mission.
You know what? I actually read that, Shay. Okay.
The reporter in the opening cutscene has a Daily Bugle mic flag, which is the newspaper that Peter Parker worked for.
Yeah, buddy.
So I wonder if they're hinting at something there, given that quote from Scott Amos, head of Crystal Dynamics. I wonder if we are going to get any kind of Spider-Man crossover, whether it's the Insomniac version or otherwise.
Yeah,
I mean, that's going to be awesome because right, is what version is it going to be?
Yeah, somebody at IGN I saw on Twitter today posted or pointed out that there is a line of dialogue in Spider-Man, Insomniac's game, where Peter Parker goes, "Oh, the Avengers are all on the West Coast right now."
Yeah,
which that's where they're at celebrating the new headquarters.
Yeah,
so
could be.
Were they like working? They were probably tinkering this whole thing together years ago. Oh my god!
The conspiracy.
I want you to say one nice thing before the show's over.
What? I said tons of nice things. I have not said a bad word about this game.
He said yes, people will buy Pokemon, is what he said. That was positive.
There we go.
He did say that.
Okay.
He was very positive about that.
I am positive that game will make money.
Yeah.
Dan, hey, you know what? I got a way to make Dan be positive. I've been playing Monster Train, Dan. I know we haven't really talked about it. I've sent you a couple like little notes, but like we talked about that. I purposely, when we talked about it on the show, I will admit,
Dan me on that. Okay, he was the Dan of that conversation.
I was the Dan of that. I purposely came in not knowing a thing about the game, and I just wanted to bother you about why it was called Monster Train because I think it's dumb. Even now that I played the game, I still think it's dumb. And I love the fact that you couldn't explain why it's a train on that particular episode. And by the way, now that I've played the game, I don't know that I can explain why it's a train. Like, it really isn't a good train. But it's a fun game.
Ruin that song or that game for you?
It is a fun game. It's a very, very fun game. I'm enjoying it very much. I played it a lot the last 3 or 4 days.
That's awesome.
Try ever thinking of that title ever again without singing it to the tune of Prince's Purple Rain.
Easy.
I don't think so. I think it's going to be in your head now from now on. Every time you think of Monster Train, you're going to hear Monster Train.
No,
Monster Train.
I mean, Brian, that's impossible. First of all, Prince is a genius, right? And Purple Rain is a song that's defined decades. And adding Monster Train to it isn't going to replace that.
Well, you're not replacing it. I'm just saying every time you think Purple Rain is going to replace Monster Train, not the other way around.
There's just no way. There's just no way. You're trying, and by the way, you're trying to ruin Prince here, and this is unacceptable.
No, because I'm saying you can think of Purple Rain without thinking of Monster Train, but you're not going to be able to think of Monster Train without thinking of Purple Rain now.
No, I'm doing it right now.
Okay.
So
Avengers. You're gonna hit me up on Slack in like 2 weeks and be like, "Damn it, Brian, I still can't think of it."
All right, how much you want to bet? How much you want to bet on that?
Community.
How much you want to bet on that?
Anything. I'm not a betting man, Andy.
I have already completely forgotten about this conversation. I guarantee I won't.
Can we talk about Cyberpunk again? At least that was positive.
Yeah. Is anybody listening?
Yeah.
I hope someone's listening. I hope you're enjoying the show. We are off the Monster Train rails at this point. Are
we even recording, or are we just like?
Yeah, I stopped it hours ago.
Yeah, you stopped it hours ago. All right. Well, we're in the negative space. You're in the negative space.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's do community emails. Let's talk. So before we get there, I know you loved this segment. You thought it was so good. That means you want to ask questions, which you send to podcast@GameInformer.com. You want to follow us on your favorite podcast program, whatever it is, Spotify, Pod Listener. I don't know what they're called. I don't even care. Follow us, subscribe on there, on YouTube, subscribe, hit the bell. You want to know when this happens because it's like, look at this entertainment.
Yeah.
Look at this.
Maybe don't look at this entertainment. Maybe look at like past weeks.
Yeah, maybe another episode.
This has been a killer episode, and I will hear nothing else about it at this point.
I mean, name another podcast that has someone wearing a jacket and cat ears at the same time.
I can't.
There's not many. Yeah, there's not many.
They do one or the other, but they don't bring them both to play, baby.
So, thank you for that. Let's do some emails. Let's start off with hello GI crew. With next gen rapidly approaching, I wanted to revisit a question I've sent the panel before. It's a little game I like to call video game stock talk. This is to say, if you were hypothetically investing in a game developer's or studio, and even an entire IP/franchise, what are you buying and what would you be selling and why? For me, it's hard to bet against FromSoft. I'll admit, I'm biased here, and the top first-party dev team at Nintendo who handles Mario and Zelda. As far as selling, BioWare stands out as the studio that's really lost its mojo. As much as it pains me to say, still hoping for that Mass Effect remaster, though. A franchise or IP I would buy right now would be Insomniac's Spider-Man's games. They seem to be on a roll, and I don't see them slowing down anytime soon. So what are you guys buying, and who are you selling? Thanks, Jared from KC. I'd like to say, do not follow us for any actual financial advice. We do not give financial advice.
You do have to provide that disclaimer.
Yeah. Yes, we are financial morons. Like you could not. Wow. I don't even know where my wallet is. Do not listen to us as far as any purchase of any item at any time. That said, with the next gen coming, Dan, who are you buying? Like what video game company publisher are you excited about, and who are you selling? Who are you selling?
I'm not a financial advisor, but if I was going to buy,
would you play one on TV?
Yeah, why not?
Okay, all right.
I bet screw you, Kramer. I got cat ears. What do you got?
Okay, gotcha. All right.
His little bull noises aren't going to do nothing to me. Anyway,
hold on.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. That was actually really good. That sounded just like it. Anyway, I'd probably like dump a chunk of change into like Tencent because they're going to own the world eventually. I mean, and I'd probably, like, given the way the state of the market is today, I'd probably take out a bunch of like covered calls against it for a slightly out of the money option play. And that's what I'd ride on. That'd be my rock, the 10-cent rock, because God knows they're going to acquire about 10 more companies.
Yeah. Okay, they are. But I mean, like, I think the spirit of the question is like not that Tencent's going to buy anybody. I think
cool games. Okay.
Like who do you think who's making games that you want to play?
We're not doing buy low, sell high kind of thing.
No, we're not. By the way, no one should listen to us for financial advice.
Andy, we got the disclaimer in there. It's all good. You just got to put that in the. We're good.
I know. Okay. So, but I mean, you're not dying to play all of Tencent's games. That's my point. Like, who do you want to play games from?
But if we're treating this like the stock market and I'm thinking long term, eventually everything's going to be a 10-cent game, right?
Okay, all right, fair enough. Okay, gotcha. That's your play. That's your play. That's your joke. I got you. All right, I got you. It's so like, who are you selling then?
Joke, but
if they're buying everyone, who would you be selling? Because they're all buying by 10 cent.
Right. You're right. They're just going to gobble them all up.
So this is just your one answer. It's just 10 cent. The future is 10 cent.
Buy. The sell is trickier. I think. A lot trickier. Yeah, I don't have a sell. Sorry.
You have a sell? Yeah.
Hold
on. Would Pokemon Unite be your sell?
But that's it. Specifically Pokemon Unite? No, because I even have to buy that because it's probably going to make money.
Yeah. Okay. All right. We'll let you off. We'll let you go with your just like 10 cents buying the world.
Pokemon franchise, right? Like that's dumb money right there.
Let's do Dan Predicts for a moment. Let's do one moment of Dan Predicts.
Dan Predicts has been real bad.
No, Dan Predicts. We're bringing Dan Predicts back. Just for this one right now. We're bringing it back. Dan Predicts. Will 10 cent sometime in our lifetime buy Nintendo?
Yes.
Yes. Oh, wow. A Dan Predicts.
Why'd you make me do it,
Put it back. Put it back. I don't want it. Get rid of it.
Our lifetime. That's a long time.
That's crazy.
Wow.
Wow, that's a bold statement. And that, by the way, that particular statement, you had to say yes. I put you in a box because you said they were going to buy everything.
You
know they're not buying Nintendo. You know they're not buying Nintendo.
Andy. You gave me the timeline of a lifetime, so I'd say what, 30, 40 years?
Say 30, 40 years. All right, yeah. Dan predicts. Everyone write that one down. Dan predicts.
Write that one down. Don't make that one come true.
Write that one. Actually, I would put that one in the YouTube comments, and you want to move that one up. You want to put a lot of thumbs up on that one. Just keep thumbs upping.
Even if they thumbs up at Andy, by the time I'm never gonna get called on it because it's gonna be like 40 years.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
And if it's the lifetime, then
and they're gonna go. They're gonna go. I remember that bad episode of the Game Informer show where this was predicted by Dan.
Yeah. I hope nobody, because that's a curse. That's not even a prediction.
Well, wait till Nintendo calls and wants to talk to you about this.
They're going to too.
Yeah, they're gonna want to know what's up, Dan.
Ready to hear your insider information.
Yeah. Oh God. All right, Brian Shea, what are you buying? What are you selling?
Right. So, if we're doing buy low, sell high, I'm gonna go BioWare for buy because they've been kind of down in the mud these past few years. Anthem obviously didn't really take off the way they were hoping. Mass Effect Andromeda obviously was a bit of a bust. But, we've got a new Dragon Age coming. There's the rumors of the BioWare's Mass Effect Trilogy collection.
Yeah.
So if we're doing buy low and then, make bank when their stock rises, then I think that's the right choice.
You think they're coming back? You think they're going to come back strong?
If they can do like a good Dragon Age game, because like they've yet to put out a bad Dragon Age game. It's just been like, I guess Dragon Age 2 has its detractors, but it's not Mass Effect Andromeda level, nor is it Anthem level. So if they can return to their roots and do like a really good Dragon Age game, and then the Mass Effect trilogy comes out and it's exactly what people want, then why not?
Okay, I got you.
And if we're just doing, hey, here's a company that's probably going to make a lot of really good games over the next few years, I think Blizzard's a good bet because, they announced that huge slate of games last year at BlizzCon. And, we've got Overwatch 2, we've got Diablo 4, we've got, whatever World of Warcraft brings with it. I think that would be a good bet, even though, the only one that I really play out of that stable is Overwatch.
Gotcha. But who would you sell? Who do you think's like gonna have some troubles as they go into the next generation?
So I was really thinking about this, and I was trying to think of something kind of off the wall because it's like, I don't know. It's easy to kind of like just pick like one of the giants and be like, oh, Ubisoft could have some stumbles here or there. They've kind of had some formulaic problems in the past. Maybe they'll fall back into those traps. But I'm going to go something that is not going to be a popular answer whatsoever. I'm going to say Rocksteady.
Oh, that is a bold choice.
Okay.
And the reason I say that is it sounds like, it's been a while since we've gotten a Rocksteady game.
There's a rumor Suicide Squad, right?
There's a rumor it's Suicide Squad, which I don't know if it's... I'm interested in playing that game, but I don't know if that's going to sell as well as a new like Arkham game would. Or if they do Superman, like they also have been rumored at some point to do. I don't know how they make that as fun as a Batman game. But then again, like they're the ones who made Batman finally fun, so I don't know. But I just think that, there is a high risk high reward, frankly, as well. But I think there's a high risk factor in going and departing from what they've been so good at for so long.
Great choice, Brian. I think it's a really interesting choice. Yeah, I think it's certainly you're right. There's a lot of chance there, and they're a very successful, very talented studio. They could certainly crush it, but maybe it was just a misstep as far as the choice of content that people won't react to it. That's very accurate.
Mm-hmm.
How about you, Alex?
So, in the spirit of the actual question, because
we're not answering any questions directly.
No, I think my buy is going to be Playground Games. And I think it's a safe buy, but I think it has the potential for some high upside. Because when I buy Playground, I know that I'm minimally going to be getting what I would argue is the better racing game in Forza Horizons. I know people literally like race sims, but I'm more of an arcadey guy. And they've shown that they can create beautiful, beautiful worlds and really fun racing. And, that is always a good seller.
Gotcha.
But if you want to, the upside comes if the rumors of them making Fable are true. And I think they have a lot of the ingredients to create an awesome Fable game. Because I think, first and foremost, making a Fable game, you need a UK developer that understands that humor, the landscapes with that. I think they have that. And I think, obviously racing and high fantasy are very different things, but I think they have the money and the push from Microsoft to accomplish that if they are indeed the studio that's doing it. So
yeah, wow. Good, interesting choice.
What another one that I just thought of, and I was just looking it up quite honestly. The Initiative, that studio that was founded by Microsoft,
quadruple A one.
Yeah, they haven't announced anything. They haven't even really said who is at that studio, but they've constantly touted like the AAA experience. I think they've said some people from Crystal Dynamics have gone there. I think they've said some people from Ubisoft have gone there. So it seems like a talent-rich studio, if the hype is to be believed. And I think Microsoft is really, really going to start relying on them to put out some big games for their next generation, especially with all the criticism this generation for their lack of exclusives. I think that could be a studio that really blows up if Microsoft utilizes their resources properly.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's one of those things like when we're talking about who we're buying or who we're selling, they're just an unknown entity. They're not even on the market really, as far as like they don't really exist yet as far as like what they are.
Since this is all hypothetical, it doesn't matter. Like some of these companies, you couldn't even like buy the direct company. You'd have to buy the company. So it's just, but since we are beyond.
We're not really doing that yet.
We are. Yeah. This is not a finance conversation. To reiterate.
No.
Yeah.
Wait, I was already buying stock in these companies.
Yeah,
that's what Shay was actually doing.
No,
I was actually sitting around.
Not even joke around.
I'm ruined.
And then was there? Who would you sell?
I guess
Alex?
I'm leaning towards. There's a lot of, I think, fair criticism of the EA Sports segment right now with Madden and FIFA and NHL and NBA not really innovating a lot, and I think we as a market have been okay with that for the time being, but especially if those continue to not innovate in their space, I think people are going to crave something different in the next 4 or 5 years. I know they're powerhouses now, but I feel like that's how people, lose their spot, is getting comfortable in that. So I would need to see some more innovation. And if I sold them, I would be sitting pretty with monetarily wise. So I guess I would lean EA Sports until they can show me something past because the cover reveal is cool, like that kind of stuff, but I want to see them do more. So
I think the history here, and I could be wrong by the way on this, is that typically when you get to that point where you're doing the finishing up an old generation game and preparing the next generation game at the same time, they kind of tend to get split focus. You know what I mean? That the best version of a sports game in a cycle tends to be more towards the middle of a console cycle rather than at the end or the beginning, right? As they kind of like ramping up on one side and coming down on the other. Now there's lots of people who would argue that why are they always rebuilding certain tools and other things like that? But I mean, you're right about there is certainly a cycle within sports games and where they go.
Yeah.
It's a really tough question, actually. Because I just kind of go with like the games I want to play. I just go with like I'm kind of looking at it as like who's hot and who's not as we continue to just kind of twist this to however way we want. I think I'm still buying. Nintendo's on fire. Nintendo continues to be on fire. It's hard to every time I'm like, no one's gonna care, and then I am wrong. Everyone cares. And Nintendo seems to just be. Ever since the Switch came back and they were like back in the console game like they hadn't been in a long time, they feel like they're just firing. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like they just continue to do that. And so, when you talk about everyone else is going to be looking like PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X, Nintendo's going to be like, we're still doing the Switch. Maybe put a better one with a better screen or something out there. And then they're going to be like, look, we made another Zelda. We made another and I think people are just going to go nuts for it, and they're really dominating the handheld market right now, and even it is still a different experience than that classic mobile experience, like mobile phone experience, and so I feel like they've got their own little world, and I think they're going to continue to capitalize on it. So it's hard to not pick Nintendo as going to continue to dominate going forward.
Honestly, the best thing that Nintendo has done this generation is unify their platform into one thing instead of having its stable of developers working. All right, half of them are going to work on 3DS games, half of them are going to work on Wii U games, and then there's these long gaps in between them. And when third-party developers stop supporting Wii U, Nintendo is like, oh, well, we're the only ones making Wii U games, but half of our developers are working on 3DS games. So now, Nintendo having all of its developers, the Fire Emblem team's not working on a 3DS game, they're working on a Switch game. And same thing for the Zelda team. And I think that's the best thing that they have done. And it really has been noticeable this generation.
Yeah, I think the Switch is on fire. It's hard to not go with it. As far as selling goes, this is a tough one for me. But I by the way, it's funny because I think their actual stock, if we talk about financials, probably still doing really well and will continue to do well. It's just I'm really I'm confused what 2K is doing more than anything. You know what I mean? Like 2K, NBA 2K is doing great. Like they keep making great games. Like it's not a question about what their games are, but it's like, how long till the next great Rockstar game? They come out and they announce the Mafia remasters, which are cool, but I'm like, yeah, but when? And what's next, right? And they're like, they've got they're working on the next BioShock, which is like, okay, cool, you're working on the next BioShock. Like, when? What? When are we going to do anything? And it's just like, there's just no, it's their lack of information for me. Mm-hmm. I know they're still executing, and I know they're still a good company, and it's not a question of that, but just as my excitement level for what 2K is doing and where 2K is going. I know what Activision's kind of working towards. I know what EA is kind of working towards. I know what Ubisoft's kind of working towards. But 2K fits in that big, they're in the big scheme of things. They're that level of publisher, and I don't feel that excitement from them right now. That's definitely missing for me. So that would be my choice, I think, in that regard.
In terms of financials, though, they're going to be doing great with GTA Online and Red Dead Online for years to come. But I understand 100% what you're saying. There is a void of information about what is actually coming next from them.
Yeah, I mean, GTA continues to be the biggest selling game. They're going to put it on their platform, and they're going to sell another 30 million units, and they didn't make anything. It's like I said, this is not about how much money they're making. And do not follow our financial advice.
Selling my
garbage.
Stock. No.
It is garbage.
Yeah,
garbage. But it is an interesting thing. I wish I knew more about where they were going game wise.
Also, I think it's worth noting that I don't think any of us own stock in any video game company, so there's no conflict of interest there. Just want to throw that disclaimer out as well.
No.
But you still also need to say that, we're not offering financial advice. It's important.
Yeah. Yeah. And what do you don't know me. You don't know what I own. I don't know. I don't think I have any. You know what I mean? I don't know. But I got to say that. Okay. Let's go on. So, howdy, GI crew. Long-time listener, first-time emailer. Thanks for all the great content. That is with an exclamation point, I'd like to add.
Yay.
My question is about a topic that I have struggled with for the majority of my gaming lifetime. Are there any game series or genres that you love the sound of and want to get into, but for whatever reason are unable to? For me, it's Soulsborne games and CRPGs like Baldur's Gate, Divinity Original Sin, etc., which we just had on our cover. He must have really loved our Wasteland 3 cover with he was like, my favorite Game Informer issue ever. I own almost every game in both genres and have played most, but always peter out. having only finished 1 or 2 ever. Any tips for getting into games that you are struggling to enjoy, or at the point where that you do accept that maybe these games aren't for me? Thanks for the advice and keep up the great content. Danny B., Somerton, South Carolina. So maybe he was excited. So he plays them, he just can't finish them. So he's buying them and can't finish them. That is a hard thing. I think for one, that is my personal thing with those type games that have a curve to them. Like a Souls game has a curve of like when you back away for a week, you have to come back and kind of like reacquaint yourself. And I also feel that to some degree, your favorite kind of games really take commitment. That something like Baldur's Gate and Original Sin, when you walk away for a week or 2 weeks, it's hard to like get back into the flow. At least that's my take. How about you, Dan? You're a big fan of both those genres.
I mean, yeah, I agree with what you said, though. Like, you can easily fall off those games. If you don't finish one of those giant... I mean, Baldur's Gate today, I can't play Baldur's Gate today. So
yeah, it's hard. Yeah.
Divinity Original Sin 2, obviously much easier to get into, but still a gigantic task. It's easy to fall off of 80-hour games. I have not completed Persona 5, and I love Persona 5. Still haven't completed it, right? I got 80 hours in.
Come on, Dan.
Got called away on something else. I don't come back to a game like that. It's like you sit back down and you're like, I have no context for whatever I'm doing.
Guess it's time to start over.
That's not happening. Yeah, that's
right. I would actually have
to Royal. Royal is better than Persona 5.
I'm just giving an example here. I don't think there's anything wrong with falling off one of those games unless you're like have a serious problem with it. You probably found something else that you like doing more, right?
And if you had fun while you did it too, like if you enjoyed it while you were playing it.
This ties directly into my backlog philosophy, right? Like I'm playing what I want to play, and maybe I committed 70 hours to this game, but something else shiny caught my eye, and I want to go play that now. Cool. Yeah. I'm having fun playing what I'm playing now, and that game is there, and I probably had great fun during those 70 hours, but I didn't finish it. We don't really have context to know why he's falling off the games. Like, it didn't sound like he's getting stuck at a boss or, getting bored. He probably just finds something not better to do, but different to do that is more occupying of his attention.
Really feeling a game like that or games like I know if I start an RPG that I know is 80 hours and I don't have 80 hours, like immediately I know I literally hit start going like I'm not finishing this game.
Yeah.
Like for those types of games, right? Like, yeah, it is fine. I mean, sometimes I'm just checking it out, but when there is a game that I do want to finish, I do put that like I need that week, or I need to like, oh, these people are going to be out of town, like I'm going to have all this time to myself to do it. That's really a big secret for me, because I feel like once you hit that like tipping point of like 40 hours in a game like that, like
there are two types of games.
Yeah,
there's 40 hours and after 80 hours, and for the second, you better have a plan.
Yeah. So I think that's helpful in regard to that kind of stuff. Though that said, I still think I've had games that I've been like, oh, I'm just going to dabble, and then I dabble, and then I just crush everything else in my life to get it out of the way so I can finish it. You know what I mean? But those are definitely, those are few and far between, those level of games that like everything must get out of the way. I can't stop playing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not getting good sleep. You guys, Brian, you have any advice for him?
I mean, I think that my advice is kind of in line with Dan's. There's like, if you're not enjoying it, then move on. I'm somebody who like really likes to finish the games that he starts. Like, I still get mad at myself when I'll play a game for 20 hours and I just don't finish it, and I leave to play something else, and then I come back and I'm like, oh god, I forgot everything. I've restarted The Witcher 3 twice because I just, I would get distracted by other games. Like, oh, Tomb Raider's out now, I'm gonna go play that because that's a shorter thing. So that's what I actually did with when quarantine started. Was Doom Eternal, Animal Crossing, and Final Fantasy VII all came out around the same time, and I was like, you know what? Animal Crossing is kind of one of those things that I'm going to come back to every day for a few weeks. Doom is a lot quicker of a game than Final Fantasy VII Remake, so I'm going to play that before I even allow myself to hit the start screen on Final Fantasy VII Remake. So I'm kind of getting those shorter experiences out of the way, so I don't if I get bored with Final Fantasy VII one day, I'm not like, oh, I should go play Doom now, and then fast forward 2 weeks and I've completely forgotten how to play Final Fantasy VII. That was kind of my approach I took during quarantine. Other than that, I mean, if you're kind of falling off and getting bored, then don't put too much pressure on yourself, because I used to do that all the time. And then last year I made a conscious decision that I'm going to not force myself to play through games that I'm just like really not enjoying that much. And I think I was a much happier gamer because of it.
Yeah, 100%. How about you, Alex?
I can't really add too much. It's funny. One of our fans tweeted at Andy and I and was like, "I have no hype for The Last of Us Part 2. Like, what's wrong with me?" And like, I guess my answer to him is the same here. It's like, life's too short to play games you're not liking. Hype is hype, and that's great. And I've talked a lot how I love new releases because I love the conversation and the social aspect of it. But like, games are meant to be like enjoyed while you play them. So like, don't force yourself. I'm with you, Andy. Like, when I see, especially before I entered the industry, like when I saw that like some of the newer Assassin's Creed games were 150 hours, it was like, I just know with my time with, with work, social life, all that kind of stuff, like I don't think I'm going to hit this. So, just don't. Life's too short. Go outside. Yeah. Enjoy.
I played a number of games. I am bummed out. I have an Assassin's Creed save file that's 104 hours, and like I probably could put another 100 hours into it easy. I've been real slow and really methodical, but it's been hard for me to just kind of keep doing because in that particular case, I loved it, but I feel like I'm doing the same thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I was like, it's getting too repetitive. I'm fine walking away from it. I'm like, I loved it. That was great. I finished the main game, you know what I mean? But like when it got into the DLC, I was like, yeah, I bet this is cool, but I'm not going to see it. Right. And that's all right.
Yeah. I felt bad because, I beat the main game of Odyssey. I loved it. I played the first arc of DLC, the Legacy of the First Blade. And then I got to the Atlantis stuff. And that's where Joe, who like reviewed it for us, was like, that's the really cool stuff. And I played through the first episode of that and I was like, I think I'm done. And I felt bad about that because I wanted to see the cool stuff, but like, I don't know, I got my fill of it. I love that game so much, but I think 120 hours was enough.
Yeah. So next question. Dear Andy and the GI crew, I just completed The Last of Us 2. Bleep. Is the best impersonation I can do there. I went about the rest of my day as usual, but everything that occurred in the game finally hit me when I got home. Not once has a game affected me this much. Naughty Dog as a studio is a master of storytelling. Every tear shed was not just for the content of the story. It was about the people from all walks of life being represented well throughout the game. I digress since I still need to process more. Huge thanks to GI for not spoiling anything or giving any hints leading up to the game. I was fortunate enough to experience it completely blind. Cheers, Thomas from San Antonio. That's great, Thomas. Great analysis of it and great spoiler-free analysis of it. That said, we have a spoiled. We did a spoiled recently, so it's up on YouTube. It's on the site. We talk. I don't know how long did that thing end up being, Alex. We probably talked for an hour and a half.
Yep.
Yeah, an hour and a half. We talked for an hour, and we didn't cover everything.
No.
Isn't this? Wait. Just to kind of pull the curtain back, isn't this the one where you guys were like, it'll be like 15 minutes?
Oh,
that was part 2.
Yeah.
We did multiple runs, and that part was not 15 minutes. No. And by the way, the first one was like, it'll take 45 minutes. It did not take 45 minutes. We I don't know why we tell ourselves some of the things we do. So, but that is over there. So check it out. It was a fun conversation. I know The Last of Us there's people who hate it. There's people who like it. People have been sending me things that are like, Andy, your magazine is the worst magazine of all time because you gave it. And I was like, so what media do you agree with 100%? What person do you agree with 100%? The answer is no one. Yeah. You agree with no one 100%. It's just not going to happen. And like, agree to disagree. You don't have to send these like letters that are like trying to prove some point of like whatever your view is on this game. No one cares. Play the game you want to play, right? I just like, it's ridiculous to me that people have to turn it into some kind of like, I have to like go on this march of death to stop people from playing this game, and they can't enjoy it. You know what? Enjoy what you want. We talked about it earlier. If I like The Last of Us Part 2 and I give it a 10, I did. Get over it. If you give it a 7, I go, oh, okay, whatever. Don't bother me. You give it a 0. Yeah, okay, 0. Sounds great. Have a good time with that. I don't send you a letter and let you know that like you're an idiot for giving it a 0 or that your opinion doesn't matter. Grow up. I'm a little off topic.
I like
there,
it. Andy letting loose.
Can you,
a little bigger.
Can you drop your mic now?
If I had one, I'd drop it. Yeah. I'd throw it. But you got to get that out there, okay? Yeah. Just like enjoy your games. Let other people enjoy their games. Let other people enjoy their movies. You can always chime in with like, I didn't like Watchmen as much as you did. Fair enough.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Have a conversation.
These crusades to go after someone for something they like, just they make me angry. So that's my little thing there. So
I like this, Andy.
Yeah, what's going on? I haven't been on the show in like a couple weeks. Like we
get him, Andy.
We haven't done this. I had a lot. I had a lot to get through.
Oh yeah,
a lot to get through. So about a year ago, it was auto battlers are sure to be the next big thing, but they just disappeared. All my friends that were super hyped about it don't even remember it now. What happened? Jefferson from California. I think this particular question is pointed at you, Dan Tack, the jacket.
That's
so
right.
there was a lot of hype around auto battlers. In fact, I think today a lot of people predicted that the Pokemon announcement was not going to be a MOBA, but that it was going to be a Pokemon auto chess game.
That would have made a lot more sense, to be honest with you.
Which would have been better, right?
I think so.
So Dan, I'm sure that's not entirely accurate. I'm sure there's a lot of people still playing auto chess out there. But look, what's the situation with the genre right now? What's going on? Catch us up.
So auto chess has gotten off the ground pretty strong. You just don't see it. You don't see a lot of it. But if you go to Twitch or you go to a lot of people are still streaming it. A lot of people are still playing it. It's a very casual mode for people. I think a lot of people who are core MOBA players and have sort of gotten tired of the scene easily made that transition over. There are some really excellent ones available right now. I think some of the problem emerged is that there was very little iteration at the beginning of the genre life. We're still going to see some new ones come out. I guarantee that. But at the beginning, when everyone was trying to just race to be first, because it started with a mod, right?
Yeah.
So everyone's like, well, let's get our licensed product, and let's do it fast. Let's beat everybody else to the punch because we don't want to miss the train. Because everyone knows if you were the first battle royale, if you were the first one, MOBA, whatever, you had a huge advantage, right? So everyone was racing to get to start off the battle, so to speak. So you had the Dota Underlords, you got Teamfight Tactics and League of Legends, and you got Hearthstone Battlegrounds. Those are the big three right now. Hearthstone Battlegrounds is my current favorite. The other two are still good. I haven't played Underlords in a long time, but Teamfight Tactics still a very big scene.
Yeah,
tons of good playing. Again, it really depends if this is your kind of game. These are a way more chilled out, more cerebral, and some elements of RNG in there. It's a little bit of a gambling going on, a little bit of luck, sort of like a poker players and other card players sort of really, really cater to this. But if you like the characters of League of Legends, for instance, but you hate playing League of Legends, TFT is your game, for sure. You can play with all the cool characters. There's never any stress of oh my god, why didn't you go in the jungle and kill that guy? Oh my god, uninstall noob. You'll never have to hear that. It's a very passive and casual experience that you can play.
I mean, we did just hear that. You literally just said it.
Right.
Yeah.
But that was actually a nice way to say it.
Okay, gotcha.
You're going to get in the game sometime.
So it's not going away. Is what you're saying? It's not going away. It's just kind of taking there was a rush, and so we're getting a little bit of a tide is coming. But it's this. You think this is a permanent? Once again, Dan predicts. I
don't like.
Yeah,
it's
auto battler. Is it here to stay, Dan?
It's here to stay, but it's a model in need of iteration. The current crop kind of really rode the original model. So the next one, I think it's gonna bust it out. It's gonna be one that says something significantly different.
Gotcha.
Sort of like the battle royale from the shooter, for instance. It's got to bracket down another genre, and it'll still be the auto battler, but it will be different than the sort of mahjong inspired model we have now.
Pokemon Fight Tactics.
Honestly, Pokemon would have been so good for this. I mean, that's a market that would have loved this. Getting 3 Charmanders, they already have the evolving in there. They don't even need to try.
Yeah, it would have been big.
Maybe that's a 2.0 release.
Maybe.
All right. Hi, Andy. Hi, Andy Atall. Sorry for the long one. Please feel free to summarize if you're interested in bringing this up in the show. I'm not. I actually read this line, which I know is just a note for me. I'm not interested because I actually think this is a really great point. This is from Jacob in North Carolina, and he does talk a long time here, but I do think it is an interesting situation, and it highlights some good, new, recent, and I think important news in the game space. I am writing to you just after the news is broken regarding Mixer being shut down. I see a lot of coverage discussion on the Ninja Shroud contracts and how this will affect the smaller streamers on the site. These things are important to talk about, but I am more concerned about something else. Microsoft has also announced that there is some form of continuity with Facebook Gaming, and that Facebook Gaming will be integrated with xCloud. As someone who likes Xbox and is rooting for them to make a comeback for the sake of competition, I am deeply alarmed at my Xbox experience being tied to Facebook in any way. I am mainly a PC gamer, but I appreciate the things Microsoft has been doing with the platform, like PC Game Pass, Xbox Xbox Game Bar, and Xbox games on Steam, etc. Boy, I'm just murdering that sentence. I apologize.
You're doing just fine.
I was very optimistic about the future of Xbox, but the potential for massive partnership with Facebook is disturbing to me. Facebook is a controversial company, and I worry about how Facebook gaming could encroach into my ecosystem. Microsoft has Mixer ads embedded all over Xbox on the console dashboard and allows you to Steam from an Xbox account. Will my Microsoft account become a Facebook account? Will I see promoted Facebook services on my Xbox console dashboard? Will it be limited to the Facebook gaming, or will it be broader? Will it impact people who use Xbox services on PC? Am I overreacting? It is an Xbox. If I was an Xbox decision maker, I would be wary of associating with a company that has become so controversial. I guess YouTube and Twitch are both owned by cloud competitors, so Facebook may have been the only option. What are your thoughts on this partnership? So, this is a good email, number one.
Yeah, sure, it is.
So thank you. And I think before we ask the panel here, I want to bring up, it's a shame about Mixer. I'm really sorry for that community. It's a bummer for you. I know that they were really into their own thing. I think the reality was the numbers were bad, as everybody knows, and they didn't seem to be changing. Microsoft obviously spent a lot of money getting Ninja and Shroud there, and it just didn't change things. But that's unfortunate. So I feel bad for the Mixer guys, and I think Jacob here does as well. But it is interesting, Microsoft connecting to Facebook and what that means and how it integrates into the Xbox. And I think you bring up all the questions that I think we would ask. I think Microsoft needs to address these concerns. I think you bring up a lot of the concerns that gamers have about where this is going, where Mixer's going to take them. Do they need to run to the hills, or do they want to be on Facebook gaming? What is Facebook gaming doing to help welcome these players and these things like that? And I think this is all. That's the weird thing about this announcement, is that it's missing all these other pieces to it that make it make sense, right? That make the players feel comfortable with this choice, that don't make them go, how does this affect my Xbox?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a big thing here. So I think this is very, very accurate, I think, to a lot of feelings that gamers have with this announcement and where it's going. Alex, you're a big Xbox guy.
I am.
So how did this announcement how did it hit you, and what do you think about some of these questions here?
I'm with him. I'm actively I can honestly say the only thing keeping me on Facebook these days is the Overblood Facebook group that we have, and then obviously our social presence on Facebook as well. So anytime I hear Facebook getting into more things, I bristle a little bit, because I haven't been thrilled with a lot of choices they've made. I think Xbox so far in the aftermath has done a decent job of clarifying some of the things. I'm looking at an article right now from VG247 that they listed tweet where someone asked Phil Spencer. He said, "With Mixer going away, does Xbox have plans to incorporate an easy way to stream using other apps like Twitch? Are you open to development of other streaming apps to give gamers options when using the console to stream?" And Phil Spencer on his verified account answered, "Yes, we absolutely want to give gamers choice where to stream from Xbox." So it doesn't sound like if you're looking to stream, you're going to be locked in to.
But he brings up a good point that they could be promoting and making it easier to go to Facebook in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and I want to keep. Even though I'm sure it's already cross-pollinated, like I want to keep those as separate as possible. So I was sad to see Mixer go away. I was sad to see, I always love when our Mixer community popped up on our streams. It wasn't very large as people can note, but it always brought a smile to my face. The more corporations start to mingle and share data and stuff, I'm not a fan of it. So I prefer to keep that away, even though that sounds like it's the answer. And like, if it gets that bad, I don't know what my future with that system looks like if I can't trust that data, which sucks because I'm I was born an Xbox guy. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
But like, yeah, I have a pretty.
But it's not going to stop you from being you're still an Xbox guy.
Yeah.
It's not going to stop you. It's just going to make you have pause.
Yeah,
correct?
Definitely. I'm going to read those agreements a little more carefully and that kind of stuff, even though, like, I know part of that's just the lay of the land right now. So
it's interesting, too, that Facebook also purchased Ready at Dawn this last week.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also interesting, too, that as Microsoft gets closer, by the way, I'm adding some questions to this, as they get closer to Facebook, that gets them closer to Oculus as well. And apparently Facebook has not stopped their investments into the gamer, right? They still want to be a part of the gaming, economy, the gamer community. That's still obviously an important part to them as a business because of these investments. Because, if Microsoft, they started Facebook Gaming, a year and a half ago? I know they made some exclusive deals for their own people to come and stream from there.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to make streaming a more important part of Facebook's experience, which could be, are they trying to get, a younger generation to engage in Facebook more, which I think is an interesting question as well, because I think it tends to skew a little older, you know what I mean, overall. So like what that brings to it, but they're obviously investing, and if they've made a real commitment with Microsoft to do something and helping Microsoft reach more people with xCloud, it does seem like there's some decent opportunity, at least, for some serious integration here.
Yeah.
Overall. What do you think, Dan, about those possibilities? What do you think about the future of Facebook?
I think Xbox? I think we shouldn't worry about that just yet. I think those are two separate entities. I'm definitely concerned about Mixer going away, as that does put Twitch in an extremely dominant position. And without that competition,
don't forget YouTube in this.
Sure. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I think
YouTube's the thing, but I think it's a different entity. I am as a gamer and a streamer. I didn't go to Mixer, and I don't go to YouTube for streams. I know it exists, but I mean, I don't think I'm alone in saying that when I go to for streaming content, it's Twitch all the time. But yeah, if I want to watch a video, I go to YouTube for sure.
Streaming content on YouTube. I actually think it has more. It doesn't have as many bells and whistles. I think you're right that Twitch has the most bells and whistles. Period. But
I'm not writing. I'll never write YouTube off. YouTube is a gigantic entity and an unstoppable juggernaut. I just don't know if it's there in the streaming realm at this point.
I think in our crowd, we have a bigger crowd on YouTube than we do on Twitch.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think
let's up our Twitch game then, baby.
And you know what it is though. That's because the Game Informer show is on YouTube. Let's just be clear. That's why. We all know why. We all know why.
Yeah.
We all know why.
Yeah.
So, but yeah. So I mean, I think that's interesting, and I think you're right that we don't jump the gun. That's great advice, Dan. I think that is good advice.
I think more will come out. It has to. They're not going to be able to hide how that is going to work. I don't know that it's very, it could go either way. Are they going to do that? The data streams being sold to each other across the big players is just a reality.
Yeah, it seems inevitable.
I don't want to give the inevitable thing. Like, I understand if you don't want to be in the Facebook. I don't think, again, we can only speculate here. I don't think you're ever going to be forced into the Facebook ecosystem via the Microsoft ecosystem. Well, they maybe link things behind the scenes in some fashion. It's possible. A lot of people do that without anybody knowing, It's
and it could just be reaching a separate set of gamers that they use Facebook to connect people to xCloud, and it's just like they're just connecting people from Facebook to that Microsoft world of game, of Xbox games, rather than the other way around, that they're connecting Xbox console players to the Facebook world. I mean,
exactly. Hey, do you want to log in on your Game Pass with Facebook or your Game Pass or whatever account you want to log into? Hey.
I think that's the most realistic scenario, is that, you can sign in with your Microsoft account or you can sign with your Facebook account. You can link the two. So, and then, when you log in, you could be like, hey, you've linked your Facebook account. Do you want to see your friends and which Facebook friends you can add as Xbox Live friends? Or, you might see a few extra ads, like all those Mixer ads might turn to Facebook gaming ads. And they might try to push you towards using Facebook gaming as your streaming service. But they've had Mixer this entire time, and it's not like they stopped updating the Twitch app or anything like that. So I think that it's, and let's not forget it. It's a partnership. It's not really, Facebook bought Microsoft. What? It's, there's still two separate entities that have just entered into hey, our streaming service never took off. We need a streaming service. You're trying to take your streaming service to the next level. Let's work together. So I think that's the most likely scenario. But we'll have to just keep an eye on it.
Yeah.
Like they weren't like, hey, we can get pop-ups from your racist grandfather to come up in the middle of your gameplay streams from Facebook.
We really want those. That's part of the Facebook experience. You know?
Yeah.
Hey, have you seen this article? Oh. Did you know the math make me sick? Whoa! Mind blown. Thanks, Grandpa.
What's this plandemic thing? What is this video?
Yeah. So thank you, Jacob. That was a great question. I think there's a lot of things like we can't answer in there, but they're just great food for thought. They really are. And I think it's an interesting thing. I don't think you're overreacting. I think it's interesting. And I think it's good. I think I still believe that like where cloud services go is an important part of our future in games.
Yeah.
Services is an important part of the games, how they connect. Amazon had a little bit of their flop with their most recent game, but like they're not done. Microsoft's not done, Facebook's not done, Google's not done.
Yeah.
The market for games continues to grow. There's going to continue to be more players. I think for all the success PlayStation has, they still have a lot to do. No one is assured a win in this next generation. And so they need to make as many moves as possible. It's just a shame that one of the first victims here was Mixer.
Yeah.
That is unfortunate.
Definitely.
That was
one out for Mixer this weekend.
Yeah. And all the smaller streamers on there, man. That sucks.
It really does. And it really does. And I think the thing that's funny is that like I actually would go visit Mixer just like I go to all of them. I'm not like Dan and only go to one thing. I go all over.
Yeah, Dan, idiot.
Yeah, Dan. And
I'd like to be good at one thing.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, gotcha.
Okay.
Twitch, the Soulsborne of streaming service. I got. By the way, that's the second roll lie I think I've got for this episode. I'm on fire. I'm on fire. I do think it's interesting. I liked going there because like and it sounds silly. There weren't as many people, so the conversations were a little bit better. It wasn't just like a stream of just like kappas. You know what I mean? Like that there were people who were sitting around talking and interacting. It had a very like. It had just like kind of like a village feel to it. You know what I mean? Just like a lot smaller communities that I think were just a little bit easier to engage to and listen to.
Yeah.
And so I think it's unfortunate that it couldn't grow, but I also kind of liked that it was small, right? Like I thought that was part of its charm.
You can find smaller Twitch communities to engage with. You don't just click on the first one that comes up when you look for your game.
Wait, there's more than one page.
Fair enough.
On that note, I agree with you completely, and I do feel, especially for the smaller streamers and the mid-grade streamers that have just really struggled to now have to try to carry their audience over. I have seen the Twitch community sort of rally and pump up these guys as they come over, all over Twitter. So that's been a nice morale bump in our world right now.
Yeah. And this isn't a diss on Twitch at the same time. It's just saying that like it had its own vibe.
I get it.
It definitely had its own vibe.
Yeah.
Hey, GI crew. On your recent episode, Alex stated he just may be the tallest man in games journalism.
Oh, so you make a claim like that, Alex.
Yeah.
I've dealt with this all week.
Well, Alex.
I know you have, and that's why I didn't tell you about this question before I asked it. In fact,
time to get your comeuppance.
Ben Pack from Giant Bomb comes in at a whopping 6'10". Just thought I would share that.
Yeah.
Ben Guthrie from Jacksonville, Florida. So how do you feel about as a misinformation provider?
Here's the deal.
Alex.
Here's the deal. Height is more about feeling than it is actual numbers.
Oh my God.
I feel like I'm the tallest man in games journalism.
We're done here.
Yeah. Where'd you go, Shay? Hey, come back. I was also informed by Beaten Down Brian that there was for real fan of the show, fan of GI. There was two other journalists. One was 6'6", I think, from Game Trailers. The other was Elise Willems. So I guess I'm not. I'm 6'5". The other guy was 6'6". Ben Platt's 6'10", they said. Ben Pat.
So you're not even top 3.
I'm telling you, I want to do a rumble. I'm gonna go for going for the belt of tallest video game journalist, and we're gonna throw it out. It's gonna be great.
Right off.
Yeah.
When E3 finally comes back.
Yeah, we're gonna have like a wrestling match. It's gonna be great.
Well, it made me laugh. Yeah. I thought it was funny because I did look through the YouTube comments last week, and everyone's like, "Excuse me,
yeah,
excuse me, excuse me."
Yeah.
So be careful what you claim. I claim to be the stupidest, and no one seems to argue that one. It seems to work out really well. I go with it.
We argue all the time.
I guarantee you, there's gonna be one dude in YouTube who's like, correction, Alex is the dumbest games journalist in the industry.
He may not be the tallest, but he has another title.
Yeah, which brings up the point. Make sure you comment about our show. I read them. I enjoy them. Please give it a like. Give it a thumbs up. It was a great show. A lot of fun. Send your emails to podcast@GameInformer.com. Thank you guys for being on the show. Good times. It got a little out of control, but that's its charm. I think that's really its charm. I'm sure because I missed an episode. I'm sure this episode is extremely long. So you're welcome, world.
We're back.
You're welcome. And please join us next week. Our show next week. There are surprises next week. I promise. Thanks for listening.
Yeah.
Good show. Go GI Crew. All right. See you guys.
Smash the bell.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.